Where's Mayor Gelli?
Oh, Mayor's here, so you got that.
All right, I'll stop. We'll just walk in here in a minute. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call tonight's meeting to order. Tonight's meeting has been advertised according to New Jersey State Sunshine Law Rule. Madam Secretary, roll call, please. Roll call, please.
Mr. Gelli.
Here.
Mr. Halverson.
Here.
Mr. Langley. Mr. Natale.
Here.
Mr. Ribbiat.
Here.
Mr. Inger.
Here.
Mr. Gross. Mr. Gonzalez.
Here.
Mr. Halverson.
Here. Do we need Mr. Inger tonight? Yes, Mr. Langley is not here tonight, so we're placing Mr. Inger in lieu of Mr. Langley. Everyone please rise to salute to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, so
Minutes?
yes, can I have approval of the minutes for July 10th meeting?
I'll make the motion.
Motion from Hal Halverson, can I have a second?
Second.
Second from Obi Gonzalez, Madam Secretary, roll call.
I'm sorry, who made that motion?
Obi and Hal.
Mr. Gelli.
Here. Yes.
Halverson.
Yes.
Mr. Ribbiat.
Yes.
Mr. Inger. Mr. Gonzalez.
Yes.
Mr. Halverson.
Yes. Okay, I see we have two correspondents on tonight's meeting. One is appeal number 3954, and one is appeal number 3934. Before we go into the correspondence, I just want to clear up the calendar a little bit. We have appeal number 4029, Congregation Malos and Torah, which I understand will not be heard tonight, as per our advice of our counsel, Mr. Jerry Dasty. So therefore, I need a motion to carry Congregation Malos and Torah to 9/11.
Without further notice.
Excuse me?
Without further
Without
notice.
further notice.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, Jerry specifically asked the cameras to carry. What? Because Jerry had a whole thing going back and forth with the applicant, and there are, you were here last month. But there are a whole bunch of objectors that want to be heard, and we didn't finish the presentation portion, and we couldn't have them heard, and they said that they can't be there tonight. So Jerry, for the sake of the community, decided that it's better to
Actually, Mr. Chairman, if I may, there was one objector who couldn't be present this evening. There was also, I think, a little bit of a misunderstanding because the chairman had asked me if this applicant would prefer 9/11 over tonight's meeting. I think because tonight's meeting really fell out during the 9 days period. I had responded that we would prefer the 24th, but the objector understood that the only reason that we were asking for this meeting to be held on the 24th and not on September 11th was so that his testimony shouldn't be heard. So the attorney asked us, Jerry didn't give us much of a choice and said that this matter had to be carried to September 11th, so the applicant is complying.
Okay. Okay. Can I have a motion to carry appeal number 4029, Congregation Malos and Torah? Make a motion, Mr. Inger?
September 11th, no further notice.
No further notice. So I have a motion from Mr. Inger. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Who is that, Mayor Gelli? Second from Mayor Gelli. Madam Secretary, roll call, please.
Mr. Gelli.
Yes.
Mr. Halverson.
Yes.
Mr. Natale.
Yes.
Mr. Ribbiat.
Yes.
Mr. Inger.
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Yes.
Mr. Halverson.
Yes. Okay. Anything else that we clear out of the way here? Not for now. Okay. So we're going to go back to correspondence. We have a correspondent letter from 3954, Bell's Center of Lakewood. The subdivision of Mary Weinstein.
Lot 1081, lot 12.42, for subdivision of the clubhouse to be on a separate lot.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Mary Weinstein on behalf of the applicant Bell Center of Lakewood. I'm sure the board will recall that about a year ago, we were in front of this board for approval to build a larger shul to accommodate actually there's two separate Bell's developments. The board granted that approval. The only thing is that approval did not contain a subdivision. So what happened was that shul is now part of a lot that contains all the common elements, including the roadway. So now when the applicant went out to apply for financing to actually get the money to build the shul, and the attorney for the bank happens to be sitting in the room right behind me, so he can certainly attest to this, the bank came back and said, no can do, we can't finance this because there's no way possible that we can finance the shul, and we're not interested in taking a lien on the roadway. What if somebody gets hurt, what if, whatever. So basically, the purpose of this correspondence matter tonight is to seek a subdivision approval to create a separate lot for the shul.
I figured as much. That was the issue, the financing issue that came up on it.
That is the issue.
Anyone have any issues with it?
And Brian is here if you wanted to explain exactly what's being done. Brian's here, we could have him sworn and he could show you exactly what. Yeah, we probably should.
Mr. Flannery? Mr. Flannery, do you swear or affirm to testify the truth in this matter?
I do. Brian Flannery Jackson, New Jersey, licensed professional engineer and professional planner. I have two renderings. One is the rendering that was approved a year ago showing the shul. Everything stays the same. The other is a rendering of the subdivision, and you can see the residential lots were all the small green lots. Everything else was one large lot. We're now proposing to amend the subdivision to add those two pink lines so that the shul is on its own lot with the park.
I just have one question. I really have no problem with this, but before we made that subdivision, right now everything was taken care of the homeowners association.
Yes.
Now who's going to take care of it?
The open space will be taken care of by the homeowners association. The shul will be taken care of by the congregation.
There's actually a shul-based entity. What we will do is we will deed over the lot that the shul is going to be on to this congregation, Bells of Lakewood. I forget the exact name of the entity, but into this shul-based entity, and the shul will actually take care of the shul lot. But obviously the roads and the playgrounds and everything else is going to remain part of that common area lot that's going to be owned and maintained by the homeowners association.
You also realize that's a separate lot will require sidewalks now all around the shul, up against the road and so on and so forth. if you
Well,
require
the
it.
sidewalks were already shown, so
Whatever, I'm just telling you, I
the
don't
site
know.
plan portion of it stays the same. So the sidewalks are there, you can see them on the rendering of it. So there's no new
Right, but
sidewalks.
The pink line is, do you won't require now a new set of sidewalks?
No, it will not.
No.
Mr. Chair, that's okay.
Go ahead.
According to the original approvals, who was the...
Yeah, do it.
According to the original approvals, wasn't the town that was going to be responsible for garbage, or that was going to be the association, or
The homeowner association.
homeowners? So
Yes.
that was the town, so it's not going to get complicated now that it's going to be...
No,
It's not gonna change.
It's not going to change at all.
The only thing that's going to change is that we're adding in the lot line. That's the only thing changing by this.
Okay. Anyone have any other questions?
Yeah, I just have a quick question about the attorney.
Sure.
Here, in the letter and the applicant information, it says here clubhouse. Okay, there's nothing here that says shul. So I'm concerned because a clubhouse to me is something that's owned by the community, and a shul is basically a congregation, two separate entities. And according to this classification, when I see black and white, it says clubhouse.
Well, that's a generic term. When you're outside of Lakewood, there are no shuls. When you're inside of Lakewood, the clubhouse is a shul.
It was approved as a shul.
Okay.
It was approved as a shul, so it's a shul.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay.
And the new lot's going to be, Brian, the new lot's going to be 12.42, is that correct?
A shul.
Okay, anyone in the public?
Yes. They're Hasidim.
They're Hasidim, and they're belts. And I love them. I just want to clarify what they're doing.
Excuse me, who are you?
Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me, I was ready to this. Do you swear or affirm that?
I affirm.
Thank you. Name?
Shloime Klein.
Thank you.
I just want to clarify what they're doing as far as the loans. I don't know, but usually when you have a development and you have a clubhouse or a shul, that technically belongs to the association, and that's how the approval was, that this shul should belong to the association, not to the separate entity. What's happening over here is we're taking away this property that was supposed to be dedicated for the homeowners association, and we're giving it to a separate entity that could make a big difference. Like if a guy like me would live in that complex, till now, because it belongs to the association, nobody could have kicked me out of the shul when the shul was in the middle of davening. But now that it's a separate entity, they could, even though I live over there, they could kick me out and they could trespass me from this building. But in this case, I'm just clarifying what they're doing over here. But in this case, as I know, the Hasidim live over there, there's the Belzer group, they all want that this should be separated, not under the homeowners association. So I'm a little bit familiar with what's going on, so it's okay. But don't take this as granted that every time you have a developer coming in and he says he's building a shul, and then he comes and he separates the lots and he says, no, it won't belong to the association. Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, I have a motion to approve the correspondence of creating a subdivision. I have a motion from Mr. Ingber, second from Mr. Naftali. Madam Secretary, roll call, please.
Mr. Gelli,
Yes.
Mr. Halverson,
Yes.
Mr. Natale,
Yes.
Mr. Vivian.
Yes.
Mr. Inger. Mr. Gonzalez.
Yes.
Mr. Halverson. Mr. Halverson.
Yes, okay. Fine, next correspondence. 316 Chestnut Street.
Request for a one-year extension to file the map.
It says you have duplex. Is this a duplex or single?
No, it's single family.
Single family.
It's single family on 10,000 square foot lots in the R20 zone.
I remember that. And I just picked it up and it says duplex.
It's a mistake.
Probably had a little people with their own.
Well, we applied for duplex.
What does the resolution say?
No, I have the resolution in front of me.
The original was duplex
But we applied.
application, that was denied.
That was the denial.
Correct.
The approved plan is single family.
Correct. Okay.
I'll correct that.
Yeah. I just realized it now. Okay, anyone have any issues with giving a one-year extension?
If you want me to just tell you the reasoning for it, there's a very small area of isolated freshwater wetlands on the property. We had to go and apply to the DEP for a permit, and I don't know if any of you have ever tried working with the DEP, but it's a whole lot of fun, and they've given us a nice runaround, so it's just taken a lot longer than expected. That's really the only reason.
Okay. I don't care. I don't have a problem with extending it for 1 year. Does anyone have any issues extending it for 1 year?
Is this the first extension?
Yes.
Okay. I'll make a motion to extend.
Do I say something?
Yes, please do.
Hope you're not sorry that you let me, but I do have a problem, Mr. Gonzalez, voting on this because he lives on Chestnut Street and he has property over there, even though this is just an extension, but for the public, it's very unethical. Again, I'm not saying legally, I'm saying is for the public, it's literally making me nauseous. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion.
Motion from Mayor Gelli. Can I have a second?
I'll say.
A second from Hal Halverson. Madam Secretary, roll call, please. And Obi, if you don't feel like voting, you can abstain if you don't want.
Mr. Gelli,
Yes.
Mr. Halverson.
Yes.
Mr. Natale,
Yes.
Mr. Vivian.
Yes.
Mr. Inger. Mr. Gonzalez.
Yes.
Mr. Halverson.
Yes. Okay. Good night.
Thank you.
Good luck on this one. Next.
24.
We're going to 4024 Cecil Morris. I think it's a continuation from the previous application on this. This is the one where we had a 50-foot frontage where it widens out to 75, and they want to put a duplex in on the back half of 75. Before we continue, Madam Secretary, can you look at the calendar, who was here, who wasn't here, at the initial one?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
can you ask the audience to stop their conversations, please?
Yes. Okay. Okay. I'd like to ask everyone to please refrain from talking. We we hear it back, Kara? And it goes back, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Abraham
One
Penzer.
second before you begin. Madam Secretary, who was absent during the initial part of it? I just need to make sure that we're all voting on it.
July 10th.
But it doesn't make a difference because we have to start all over again.
You starting all
There
over
was a
again?
defective notice issue.
Got it.
So Brian, that's why I interrupted. I apologize
No problem.
to the members of the board.
Okay, it's been
Notice was
corrected.
not given in time. Now I have it.
Correct. So, in
So
order,
that's been corrected. That was, I think that was after we heard it the whole
I
night.
don't think.
June 12th, that was back in June, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, go ahead, start all over again.
for the record, Abraham Penzer appearing on behalf of the applicant. Without further ado, I would like to swear in Mr. Flannery.
Mr. Flannery, you swear affirm to testify truth in this matter before the board.
I do. Brian Flannery, Jackson, New Jersey, licensed professional engineer and professional planner. As the project was introduced, this is for a lot in a split zone. It's split between the R10 and the HD6, both of which have duplexes as a permitted use. In the HD6, you're not allowed to have any residential within 200 feet of Route 9. This particular lot is within 200 feet of Route 9. I could give you a lot of testimony on where the lot line falls and what should be in and what should be out. But I've marked two exhibits. A1 is the map that was submitted showing the subject property. And the relief we're asking for relief for two things. One is a 53 things. One is a 50-foot wide lot.
Right, can I interrupt you a minute? Hope he's asking me why we are doing this over again. And I just want to explain to him that we did it last time, and it was a defective notice, and therefore it had to be re-noticed, so he's starting all over again from the scratch of this application.
I'm going to do it quickly, but since there was a notice issue, technically that testimony
Board
from
didn't
last
have
time.
Board didn't have jurisdiction in June, they were required to renotice, so they're back here again, begin from part one, phase one. All right?
So, we go to the focus.
So I'm going to do it quickly. We're looking for relief from three separate things. One is the lot width, and we have 75 feet in the back. We only have 50 feet at the road. The house is placed back where we have the 75 feet. We're asking for a side yard setback of 9 foot 6 inches on each side rather than 10 foot on each side. 10 foot's what's required. I know the board likes 10 feet better than 9 foot 6 inches. I will give the justification, and I hope that the board accepts that the 6 inches is de minimis, and it'll be to the benefit of the future owners. But if the board decides it has to be 10, well then that's...
You know, we go down to 28 and make it 10.
Yes, I know we can. I'm hoping the board is going to find that 6 inches to be de minimis and approve it, but if they don't, that's not make or break this application.
Maybe we go.
It makes a...
Maybe we have to, the applicant will find 6 inches de minimis, and then we'll build a house of 28. You think of it that way.
Yes, there are two ways to look at most anything. Okay, and then the final relief that we need, and you can see on A2, the property is within 150 feet of Route 9. You're supposed to not have residential within 200 feet. In this particular case, we're on James Street. We have the medical office behind us, the pizza place in front of us. We've got 8 duplex units going up next to us. We've got 4 duplex units going up across the street. That area is redeveloping with duplexes. To put anything else in there besides a duplex doesn't make any sense. You only have 50 foot of frontage. To try to put a business use in there in the back next to 8 duplexes, in my opinion, would be a mistake. The property's in a split zone, so I could argue about, well, we could move the lot line 20 feet in either direction because the ordinance gives you that flexibility, in which case then the unit itself is in the R10, so it's not in the HD6, and you don't have to look at that 200-foot criteria anymore.
How much part of it is in the HD6?
It's,
What percent of the lot, or how many feet?
well, the HD6 line, and it's, as some of the things in Lakewood go, the line is not well defined. If you look at it on the map, on the zoning map, it looks like it goes
10 feet?
in between where the jog is, and it's a 26-foot jog. So the ordinance allows you to use the zoning criteria from the less restrictive one way or the other. In this case, Less restrictive would be saying where the house can be. So if we move it 20 feet over, then the line is 5 feet off the property line, and the duplex is all within the R10, where we're good, except for the 6
Zone line
inches.
is within 5 feet of the property line?
Yes.
So the split zone was within 5 feet?
Well, the split zone, the way I look at it, is 20 feet from the property line.
20.
If I had to give you an exact number, you
Out of
can't give an
75.
exact number. 20 out of 75.
So 55 is in R12 and 20
Yes.
is in the HC6?
Yes,
That's what
R10.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Flannery, I want to go through real fast. You said A1 and A2, you didn't explain on the record what they were. So if you explain what they are and give me a lasting revision date, I would appreciate it.
A1 is the use variance plan that was submitted, dated 6/28/17, with no revision date. And it does show the parking in front of the units as we had discussed at the last meeting, so that there's a back out and a turnaround and nobody's backing out onto James Street. A2 is a copy of the zoning map, the current township zoning map with the zone lines indicated and the subject property highlighted in orange.
Thank you.
The property is currently used as a residence. So if I had to argue more about why this should be a duplex instead of a business, the business would be violating more of the R10 zone. It's already residential, so making the duplex compatible with the other is a logical extension. Looking at the Terry's report, it indicates in the R10, duplexes are permitted on 12,000 square foot lots. This lot has 12,042 square feet. So in the HD6, we're allowed duplexes on 10,000 square foot lots. In the R10, we're allowed duplexes on 12,000 square feet. So this exceeds both of those requirements. When you have a split lot, it's kind of difficult to say what size lot you need for a duplex that could be on either. I think the simplest way to look at this is, as I had indicated before, the ordinance says that you can use the least restrictive zone for 20 feet of the property. So the least restrictive zone in this case, since we want a duplex, would be the R10 zone. If we move that property line over the 20 feet that you're allowed to by the ordinance, the lot, all except for 5 feet, is R10. The duplex that we're proposing is all in the R10 zone, and it complies and makes sense. The bulk variance relief that we're requesting, we need for the duplex 10 feet on each side. We're asking for 9 foot 6 inches. And I think the chairman and I had a conversation on how to look at that 6 inches as de minimis. We hope you look in our direction. When we look at the justification as far as the special reasons and the negative and positive criteria, you look at the master plan of 2007 on page 56. It says encouraging development and redevelopment based on smart growth planning principles. It's my testimony that what's being proposed here certainly does that. That whole street, which is a very busy street, James Street, is a very busy street, and the existing dwellings that are there that have been redeveloped are all being redeveloped with duplexes. When we look at the municipal land use law, NJAC 40:55D2, under the purpose of the Act, A is to encourage municipal action to guide the appropriate use or development of all lands in a state in a manner which will promote public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. And it's my testimony this promotes the general welfare by redeveloping the property, providing a housing opportunity, and providing the appropriate development that's suited for this particular lot. E is to promote the establishment of appropriate population densities and concentrations that will contribute to the well-being of persons, neighborhoods, communities, and preservation of the environment. And this certainly is the appropriate population density, because the ordinance and the master plan say it's R10, which should have duplexes on 12,000 square feet. And G is to provide sufficient space and appropriate location for a variety of agriculture, residential, and this provides that appropriate space for the appropriate use. The municipal land use law says in particular cases and for special reasons, and the special reasons were just what I gave you, but the negative criteria also says that the variance cannot be granted without a finding that there will be no substantial detriment to public good and it will not substantially impair the intent and purpose of the master plan. And since it's next to other duplexes across the street from other duplexes, certainly it's not going to negatively impact the neighborhood. And with respect to the master plan and zoning ordinance, it's my testimony that it's virtually consistent. That's basically our case.
Just one thing, Chairman, if I could. The revised plans that we have, the board has a use variance plan, which I think Ryan is showing, revised to June 28th. The architectural drawings are revised to June 26th. There was a change with the revision, Ryan, where the basement entrances have been moved. They're now on the side.
Yes.
Of each unit.
Yes.
But they're not going to be any closer than 5 feet.
Correct. They will comply with the ordinance. There's 9 foot 6 inches on the side, so there will be a minimum of 5 foot from the side of the basement entrance to the house. We're not asking for any relief from that provision of the ordinance.
Thank you.
I just have questions. It says over here, side yard setbacks of 10 and 25 combined, becoming 10 and 10, which is, and now you have up to 19 and a half. Is this the famous Ryan map?
Well, no. The Lakewood ordinance allows us to do an administrative subdivision of a duplex. And when we do the administrative subdivision of the duplex, you no longer have a combined setback because the one side is 0. And certainly it's the applicant's intention that this would be, there would be an administrative subdivision to divide it into 2 lots so that each would be on its own fee simple lot, in which case there is no combined 25, it's 10 and 10.
Do you agree with that?
That's correct.
Right, so then it's 10, so then it's 10 and 10, not 10 and 25. Okay, fine. Next thing is, I understand that your biggest issue is here, the 26 feet that's behind the bodega, that those garages that are in front over there.
Yes.
So, can you bring us any type of circulating map of how this is going to work? The driveways in and out, because I see it's 4 double stack on each side.
The map that's submitted shows that. There's a common area, they're stacked, and then there's a common area behind it, and there will be easement agreements between the owners such that the owners on the left can back out, turn to the right, and then pull out forward, and the owners on the left will do it the other way.
Parts of their applications, these 26 feet missing over here, and how this is going to work. This whole front area, this whole front square is going to have to be on a easement, a shared easement.
There'll be an easement that allows that, and it's cross-access easement. It's a pretty typical thing.
The right way.
Yes.
Okay. And how wide is this patch of, whatever you want to call it, in the middle of grass, asphalt, stone, dirt, whatever?
Well, we have 50 feet, and we're taking up 36, so there's 14 feet of grass, whichever way the board would like that whacked up. I would think that, we'd split it down the middle, and we'd have roughly 5, 5, and 5. So there'd be 5 foot of grass on each outside and 4.5 feet in the middle.
So this little area between the front little patch of grass over here and the back patch, 14 feet grass, is meant for the cars to, like a circular driveway?
Correct.
Semicircle?
Well, it's more like a hammerhead, a backing up hammerhead type.
What you want, right?
Yes.
But that's meant for the cars to be able to come in and back out somehow?
Yes. Yep.
Without bumping into the parked cars and just pulling out?
Well, the parked cars have room in front of that.
Yeah.
And I see Mr. Klein is looking at it. He'll probably review it, and he can help me explain it a little better.
I'll tell you, I've seen this, we implemented this idea in a couple of places here in town to work, and I've noticed that people are using this as another spot to park a car, another driveway.
Well, we're providing 4 parking spaces per unit, and I'm confident that the applicant's attorney, Mr. Penzer, will draw up this cross-access agreement such that,
I understand that, it's just that once you close on the buyers or the tenants, close on the lease on the contract and move in, that cross-access easement together with the purchase of the house, and then all the paper gets hidden in the file, into the safe, and then when you look at it, and then you do what you have to do.
well, Mr. Penzer's paperwork is usually different. People have more respect for his paperwork. But this is also a unique situation where we're on a busy road. On some of the other roads, there's certainly a likelihood of that happening. Here, either side that did that would be adversely impacting their neighbor because they would have to back out onto James Street, which is something that shouldn't be done. So I think this is a unique situation where I would expect that it's going to work, and I'm confident that there'll be documents prepared that'll assure the availability for it to work.
Okay, fine. I'll let my rest of the fellow board members see what they want to do, whichever which way out. Any comments from board members? Anyone have anything to say about this?
Ryan, did you try to purchase the 26 feet from the other neighbor?
At 26 feet, there's a garage and a business there, so it's a developed piece of property.
Did you try to purchase that?
I don't believe the applicant attempted to purchase it because typically on a developed piece of property that's already a small lot, the likelihood that it would occur, and we're not here for a lot area variance. We have the 12,000 feet that's required, so we'd be looking there at more of the lot width, and the lot width we could technically comply with by stipulating a front yard setback behind the jog. And if the board would feel comfortable doing that, we'd certainly be happy to do that because the lot width is measured at the front setback line. So the front setback per the ordinance is 30 feet. We could stipulate a front setback of 60 feet, and we'd be happy to do that, and then there's no longer a lot width issue.
Okay, anyone else? Anyone else want to say something? Seeing none, I'll open to the public. Appeal number 4084. Name is
Mr. Klein, you swear you affirm to testify truthfully?
I affirm. Remember, was there public comment in the previous zoning board meeting? I want to be consistent. If I objected, I have to object. If I was for it, I have to be for it.
Well, I'll give you another opportunity, sir. This is the
Was there a public comment?
I was not here at the
I
last meeting.
don't believe there was.
I don't think it got that far.
There wasn't. There wasn't.
Okay.
And I've never heard Mr. Klein object to an application anyway. He gives his comments, and I appreciate his comments and his clarification. The one thing I wanted to add is we did get a letter from the neighbor to the east who wanted a 6-foot fence along the property line, and the applicant agrees to that. I don't know if the plan shows it.
the bodega.
Yes.
East is the bodega.
Planned Parenthood.
Oh, the east of the, behind the bodega.
Behind.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, you didn't need a variance for that because it's right.
We don't need a variance for that, but we do want it on the record that we're going to put that fence because we want to be a good neighbor.
Which property line is that from?
That's on the
The
125.
75-foot property line to the north.
The 175 foot or the 125 feet?
76 foot to the north.
That lot
All the way in the
line?
back? Okay, that's fine. Okay.
I don't have an.
Tell them it's to lot 13. That's to lot 13.
Lot 30.
Okay, just for the record, we have a 4-minute loop.
I don't object to this application. I just want to make sure that it's safe. The previous applications that came up for this board, when you're talking on James Street, it's a county road and it's very dangerous over there. And usually when you have these shared driveways with these turnarounds, you have to have sidewalks for people to walk from in front of the property line. But most importantly, for the kids that are living there, that they shouldn't have to go onto this busy, between the two units, that it should have space in the front, and that it should have like a sidewalk in the front of them to play, and the parents to tell them is, till this sidewalk you could go. The reason why I'm telling you this, because I live in such a development that I guess Brian was not around those days when they approved it. They didn't put a we have our driveway and there's no sidewalks, and basically the kids run on the road because it's a driveway in front of the property. But no matter if it's a driveway, but the end of the game is, if it's not dedicated for these lots and people could turn around and kids don't know how to associate where to stop and where not to stop, and the kids are using it and the cars are using it, it's a recipe that somebody might get killed over there. There's nothing over here to indicate where the sidewalks are or where the driveways are. And in my experience, when we just had an approval with Belts, you guys approved something and there's no sidewalks on a whole strip. So again, could be you have different plans over here that I am not aware of, but what is shown over here, I think it's simply dangerous. Brian, do you want to explain something that I don't understand?
I thank you for pointing that out. It's a very good point. And the plan doesn't show the sidewalk, but the intent is clear, and Terry can tell you that this would not get approved without curb and sidewalk. The applicant fully intends within the right-of-way to put curb and sidewalk, so that the situation that Mr. Klein is talking about, which is absolutely right, that would be a dangerous situation to not have sidewalk there. The applicant certainly would like a condition of the approval to indicate that there will be curb and sidewalk.
All lots approved facing a street must have sidewalks.
That's correct.
That's as long as it's facing
Unless the board were to grant a waiver, and we're not asking for that waiver.
But you know the board will never grant you a waiver on a sidewalk. Facing the street.
Never is a very long time, so,
Yeah.
but in this
Never say
particular
never.
case,
You're right.
yes.
Take that back. Never say never.
Yes.
But again, in Bells, there was no waiver granted, and because it didn't show on the plan, the developer got around it. So, and there's no sidewalk on a whole strip over there. So again, there is a loophole that developers come over here and don't show a sidewalk, they could get around. I don't think you'll get around over here because everybody will see it. It's not like Bells, it's like a closed community, and they generally are not complaining people, but it's still dangerous. The question that I have over here, Brian, are you able to put a sidewalk over here before the whole mess over here between the two units? For the kids?
Well, that sidewalk really wouldn't accomplish anything, so the answer is no.
But again, you could move this up a drop and have them a little bit space playing over here in the front, like this, they don't have to play
You
on
need
the
the mic,
driveway.
Mr. Klein. You need the mic. Oh, I was told you have 23 seconds.
So the question is if you could just move, because it's James Street and you're putting a hammock that the car's turning around between the units, it's just for the safety for the people that are going to live over there to have a sidewalk to tell their kids, please don't play on the road and on the driveway road and play on the sidewalk.
As Mr. Klein pointed out, there is room to accommodate that. The applicant doesn't feel that's a needed item. He would certainly speak to the potential buyers before they start construction, and if the buyers feel that they'd like a sidewalk there in lieu of more rear yard, I think my experience is that the buyers would prefer to have the rear yard where the kids could play in the rear yard and not have a sidewalk up front. But that would be a decision the purchasers could make, and there is the availability, as Mr. Klein pointed out, to accommodate that.
But again, I'm not talking about what the buyers want. I'm talking about the safety of their kids.
Okay. These time's up, Mr. Klein. Anyone else?
So you want me to stop talking? So you're shutting me down now?
Time's up, sir.
What?
Time's up.
So that means is you don't want me to continue talking?
You had your 5 minutes, you made your comments.
I think it was 4.
Excuse me, 4 minutes.
And I was interrupted by the board, by the applicant, by his engineer, and this all happened in the 4 minutes.
Okay?
So if I have 4 minutes, give me 4 minutes, and you can't interrupt the time in the middle and count that as 4 minutes. So my question is again, am I being shut down now and telling me to step down the podium?
You're still talking, I'm trying to talk. If you have one final closing comment to make the comments, Mr. Flannery can finish his testimony.
Thank you for letting me finish, and I finished already. Thank you.
public? Seeing none, I'll close to the public. Yes, now I'm gonna have an open.
Brian, just explain, if you're on the right side of the parking lot and you're the front car, how does that car get out?
Well, all of the parking spaces, similar to any driveway where you have them double stacked. If you're the first one in, the guy behind you has to move. Now, hopefully, the family members can make this parking arrangement so that they know who's going to be leaving first or second.
So that means you're talking about backing down, backing out into James Street?
Oh, no, I'm never seeing a need to back out. You might have to have if the wife's car is behind yours, she might have to get in her car, move her car out of the
Where
way.
does she move it to?
But she, in all likelihood, unless there was a space open on the neighbors, she would have to go out onto James Street.
So that's backing out into James Street?
No, pull forward onto James Street.
There's a car in front of them?
If
I just don't understand how this whole...
If the front car here wants to go, let's say that's my
On the
car.
right.
Over here?
Go to the right, that's right, that one.
Okay, so if that's my car and I want to go and my wife is parked behind me,
Right.
I tell my wife, sorry, honey, you gotta move the car. She either backs out if there's any room in here, she pulls in here, chances are not. She backs to here, she pulls out, she pulls onto James Street, I go out, and she comes back in.
Mr. Halverson, I can't hear you. I
Well-
need you to repeat that.
I was just questioning the availability, how easy it would be to pull out on James Street and turn around and get back in. I don't, doesn't sound feasible.
Well, it's certainly a cumbersome process, and it would make sense that if the husband and wife plan how they're going to use their vehicles, and if it's a short trip or something, she takes the other vehicle.
Brian, I think that diagram you have on the easel is different to what we have. The parking space.
That's no different.
They have these, the parking further forward.
That's no different. This is what I have.
I don't have.
This is exactly what I have. Two, and this, that's what I said, this empties it like a hammerhead, where they can go in and out. That's what I said. That's what I meant.
That's not what I have. That's not what I have.
Let me see, right, let me see what you have. Oh, yes. Yes. So move these up, right. Yes. So to move this up, the cars can go in and out, right, like you see. Yeah. That's what I asked before, that this gets utilized as another parking spot. That's what I asked before. And the documents say that. Or the cozy groups and the big wheels. Okay.
Okay.
Are you okay, Mr. Gelli?
Yes.
Okay. Anyone else want to say something on this application? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Brian, I'm not an architect by all means, but I'm trying to look at safety issues here. I agree with Mr. Gelli and some of my other board members on the parking. I understand the design that you have here, 4 spaces for each house, but did you ever consider on the left side of James Street, the left side of the housing, the house on the left side, to have angled parking? You might be able to fit 8 cars within that strip, but now it's easy for somebody to go in one way and just back out. And not have to back out at all, just go back, and everybody now, nobody's behind anybody else. You can actually, everybody can get into their parking space and anybody can leave at the same time.
That certainly is another option if the,
I'm just saying, it would look something like this. Again, I'm not an architect by all means, but I'm thinking that now, if anybody's there or they leave and they can't move that car, the person that could be parked behind it is not subjected to having to stay there because that car can't be moved because the person that owns it doesn't have it. Just food for thought, I don't know, again, I'm not an
It needs more room
engineer.
for greenery as well, to make it.
No,
this
no,
way,
it would be less room for greenery.
Oh, right, 'cause you're using it
Right.
for,
Yeah.
yes.
But-
Yeah,
but
then we're
it's
gonna,
more
then we're gonna
comfortable.
pave, and we'd be happy to change it to that if that's what the board wants. But then we're talking about paving, yeah.
You know, I'm just thinking something that it's easier for the, you know, James Street is a busy street, you have a lot of trucks that go through there, big trucks. You know, Clayton Block is on that street, off of
Wood Haven
Prospect, they
lumber.
come out.
Wood Haven lumber.
Wood Haven lumber. So this would give the people, number one, nobody will get stuck behind parking, okay? Number two, it will give them a real nice area
Well,
where they can go in and come back out.
it would be more convenient for
Always.
parking so that people don't get, the double stack doesn't need to occur.
It's
But
easier
it,
on parking and but more comfortable.
yes,
Right.
more,
Yeah.
less open space. So I think it's not gonna look as nice as this will, but it'll be better for the,
Maybe we can make it look nice and come up with some nice ideas how to make it look nice, I don't know why.
Like I said, I'm not an architect, just trying to look at safety issues.
yeah.
For the people living there, and inconvenience issues.
Well, I think the applicant's position is that if the board wants to say that's, you know, if they're gonna act favorably and they wanna say have it, and we can't do angled parking because then there isn't, it's gonna be head-on parking. Yeah, and we would have a turnaround area behind it, so the car pulls in and pulls out, and we can stack them up. It's an aesthetic versus, and I don't see it as safety, because the people have the availability to pull out, but I see it as convenience, and it's a balancing act, and whatever the board decides, the applicant is okay with.
Judy, you want to say something?
Just a little bit, okay, because, pardon me? Can you hear me now? Okay. My experience is when you have these.
Can't hear you.
When you have these driveways that are narrow like this. All right. I think that's better. How about now, you hear me? Okay. When you have these driveways that are narrow like this, so what happens is the cars tend to back in instead of pulling nose first.
Yeah.
And what's happening is that on James Street, they're going to pull, swing around and back, and that's really a hazard. I don't know if it can be done, Mr. Pence, if you're here, you're the attorney, maybe you can figure something out, get a 50-foot wide lot. I see that the property on the right, the way you have the property lines drawn, is that he has a narrower side. I mean, is there any reason why you just can't divide it up and try to figure out how to make more parking for both? Can that be done? Any problem with that? I would even move the house back a tiny bit just to give it a little bit more.
Well,
I didn't really think about this, why don't we just put 4 on each side, you know, head on, and keep have more.
you don't have enough room for 4 on each side head-on, because you need a 20-foot driveway and an 18-foot parking space, so that's 38.
No, the 20 feet you'll share on both sides.
Yeah, but 36 and 20 is 56, so we'd be on the neighbor's property.
What's that? Maybe he doesn't mind it.
No, the original, Mr. Gonzalez's original suggestion of running a driveway in it, and we pushed the house back a little so that we would get 8 spaces. The other thing we can do is, if we push it back, we have a couple at the end, so we might not need 8 in a row. So I'm sure we could work out a parking configuration of that magnitude, that nobody has to, there's no double stack parking.
Okay.
Chair.
Yes.
Maybe we should give them 2 minutes and we have them on the public, a traffic engineer, maybe we can come up with an idea.
Or maybe we'll just, maybe we should go for a vote, just come back on the final design of the parking.
Still 4 on each side, like that.
We'll decide later on the parking,
They don't
how
want
that
double,
works.
they don't want double.
The proposition is to vote on it now, have him
Vote
come
in the
back.
application, if it does get approved,
Come
Mr.
back on the
Village, then
parking.
just has to come back on the parking design. You know, one way or the other.
And the applicant would be happy to do that.
Yeah, it'll be 5
But
minutes, show the parking design.
we could actually propose a few different options, and then the board could look at that, because As I've said many times before, the board is much smarter at these things than we are.
Okay, having said that, and having discussed this, any further comments from board members? If not, let's have a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve this application with the regular third column of the, as a duplex, yeah. But
Excluding the
excluding
parking
the parking,
sign.
to come back with a couple of designs of parking so we can finalize it. But approve this now.
I have a motion from Meggie, second by Mr. Valley. Madam Secretary, roll call, please.
Mr. Kelly.
Yes.
Mr. Halverson.
Yes.
Mr. Naftali.
Yes.
Mr. Ribbiat.
Yes.
Mr. Inger.
No.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Yes.
Mr. Halverson.
Yes. Good night and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving ahead, 3743A, David Seaback.
5268 Anderson Avenue to construct an addition to existing retirement living facility. Variance requested for number of parking spaces and front yard setback to First Street. From Terry Road, engineer planner, June 6, 2017. On July 25, 2011, the applicant received preliminary and final major site plan approval to construct an expansion to the existing Lakewood courtyard assisted living facility with no nursing care. The expansion will contain 37 new dwelling units. The applicant also received a D variance for the proposed height of the expansion. The applicant is returning before the board at this time to amend the application to revise the configuration of the expansion at the northern end of the property.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Madam Secretary. Good evening. My name is Sean Gertner, appearing on behalf of the applicant. This evening, we will have four individuals testify. Mr. Flannery, the Executive Director of the Assisted Living Facility, Lauren Schechter, Rabbi Ralberg, who's been serving as the rabbi for the facility, and our cleanup hitter will be Scott Kennel, who is our traffic engineer. I appreciate the recitation by the board secretary that is basically the basic summary of this particular application. I would point the board to Mr. Flannery's April 11, 2017 correspondence to the board. Just to reiterate, the applicant received approval to construct an addition to the existing facility in 2011. In fact, construction is ongoing. The approval included a D variance for the height of the building, which contained 40 new residential dwelling units, along with a total of 66 on-site parking spaces, of which 10 were proposed to be located in a parking area beneath the building. You'll hear testimony this evening that based on current usage and current projected usage by the residents in that particular building, that space would be better utilized positively by those residents if it were to become enclosed. That does, however, reduce the on-site available parking. In addition, though, in order to try to attempt to mitigate that, the number of proposed additional residential units has been reduced from the 40 to 37. Mr. Chairman, would you like, and Mr. Dasty, would you like all four proposed witnesses sworn right now, and then they can come up, or one at a time, whatever's easier for
I
you?
think we should take them all at once.
Still
Day
at
one.
once, that's fine.
Okay, so if everyone I've announced, if they could please rise, and you'll either swear or affirm.
So
And then
we'll,
announce yourself.
Chip in as they so please during the.
We'll do Brian first and then know his name by heart. We'll just go one at a time. You all just raise your right hand. You swear or affirm to testify truth in this matter?
I do.
Your names for the record, Mr. Flannery?
Brian Flannery.
Sir?
Scott Kennel, Kennel, McDonough and Ray Associates, as the traffic expert.
Thank you very much. Sir?
Lorne Schechter, Lorne, last name Schechter. I'm the CEO of Spring Oak Senior Living Management.
Thank you, sir.
Eliezer Ralbag, Eliezer. The last name is Ralbag. I'm the rabbi at the Lakewood Courtyard.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, as to the two professionals, I presume both of you accept their credentials. They've both testified on numerous occasions before the board. Is that okay? Or do you want to hear any more information on either one of them? You would accept their credentials?
The
Mr.
only one really is Mr. Kennel, and I know he's been here a number of times, the others are just public residents.
Okay, and Mr. Flannery as well. We don't want to
That's a
leave,
question.
we don't want to leave him out. I'll just make the record. All right, with that, I'd ask Mr. Flannery to come up and describe the proposed amendment.
A1 is an exhibit showing the proposed plan that was submitted. A2 is the original approved plan. You can see they look pretty much the same. The difference is on the end of the building near First Street, the original plan had parking spaces underneath the building. There was a total of 11 underneath the building. The proposed plan is to put a community room down there. We feel those 11 parking spaces aren't needed, and Scott Kennel will give the testimony on that. But since there's 11 spaces we don't need, this would be a room that the residents can use, and it's just a better utilization of the space. And if the board finds the testimony compelling that the parking isn't needed, and we have years of history with this project, most of the board members that have been here a long time know what used to be there before the courtyard was developed. It was an eyesore. It's a very it's a central focal point in the town, and we took it from a site that was an embarrassment to something that's a very it's inherently beneficial use. It's aesthetically very pleasing, and if you look at the rendering, A3 is a rendering of the building, A4 is a rendering of the room that we're proposing in lieu of the 11 parking spaces that we didn't think
Were necessary.
that we feel are not necessary, and that's based on traffic studies every step of this way. It's a facility that the residents don't drive, and we have the operator of the facility that'll tell you what the traffic or the parking situation is. We have the traffic engineer that'll tell you what the current recognized standards are for this type of use. And I've been there myself. Prior to the last application, I went there on a regular basis. And the number of parking spaces that the ordinance required is more than what's needed. On the last application, we did that by showing parking under the building. After reflecting on it, we feel that those parking spaces aren't needed, and this room will be a benefit to the residents, to the community, and it's just the benefits greatly outweigh the detriment. Terry's report lists the relief that we need, and the relief that we really need at this point is limited to the parking. The other relief that was requested, as you can see from A1 and when you used to be able to see A2, the only thing that really changed is that instead of having parking under there, we're going to have a room. They look virtually the same. The setbacks, everything is the same. Terry's report, item 2, says a front setback variance, and we haven't changed the front setback. The building is up. The board can see what the front setbacks are. They can see everything but the parking lot, which isn't finished. A3 indicates the bulk variance for the canopy. A4 indicates the proposed building coverage of 40% instead of 25%. And again, it's the same building, so we're not changing any building coverage.
So majority of these, as you go through them, have been previously approved.
Yes, the building height, it's the same building height. It's just the parking that's being eliminated. The freestanding sign is the same. And then we come to number 8, which is the relief that we're asking for tonight. And the relief is for 56 spaces where 64 are required for the ordinance. And again, Mr. Kennel will testify later and give his professional testimony on why the 56 that we're proposing is more than enough. And if the board agrees that the 56 spaces is more than enough, then clearly it makes more sense to have a community room there than parking that's not needed. Terry's report asks for testimony on the HVAC, and again, the HVAC, The generator, all of that is staying exactly the same as originally proposed. The only thing that we're changing, and that covers the grading, the stormwater management, the lighting, and everything else. This is
Just
a...
one question, if I could, Chairman.
Go ahead.
On the relocated generator, are there any noise impacts on future residents of the building addition?
Well, the relocated generator is up in front of the building, and it's actually close to the location of where the community room is going to be. So it's outside. It's a state-of-the-art generator. It comes on very infrequently. Those timings would be not in the evening when they're going to disturb anybody that's sleeping.
And they're moved in front of the community room for that very reason, not directly in front of any resident, of the proposed residence room.
They're not going to impact residents of this facility?
That's correct.
That's what I'm hearing.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Harry, the generator is so strictly if there's a power outage.
But it gets...
They exercise them.
Yes.
And if
Right.
there's a decibel issue with the generator, we just want to make sure it's not in that.
Yes. Yes, and that is the testimony, that it was picked in this specific location so that it doesn't create any noise impacts for the residents.
You're going to comply with the state noise ordinance?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
So the master plan says we should encourage development and redevelopment based on smart growth planning principles. It's certainly my testimony that this is smart growth. The municipal land use law, under purpose of the act, NJAC 40:55D2, says encourage municipal action to guide the appropriate use or development of all lands in the state in a manner which will promote public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. And it's my testimony this does promote the general welfare. The parking variance is what's referred to as a C2 variance, where we need to show that the benefits outweigh the detriment. My testimony is based on the fact that the parking is not needed, so therefore we have no detriment. And I think A4 shows the benefit that the residents and the community get.
And that, you'll hear further testimony to support the planning conclusion.
Okay. Brian, if you don't mind, let's zero in on the parking requirement. When we started this application back in 2011, what was the variance from how many parking?
In 2011, we had sufficient parking. We had 10 extra spaces.
No. For the addition. When was this addition done?
The addition was done. It probably says in Terry's report.
It was approved in 2011, I think.
For this.
2011. In 2011, we had no parking variance.
You didn't have a parking variance?
There was
So now
no
you
parking
ask for a
variance.
Is that
We
what
did
it
not
is?
ask for a parking variance.
You did not ask
We
them?
provided more parking than the ordinance
But-
required, and we provided more parking
Hold on a
than we
second.
felt was necessary.
I'm reading here in the resolution. This is an age-restricted area, right? This is not, this addition is not senior living, or nursing care. It's strictly age-restricted. So therefore, it
Well,
falls
the operator of the facility will testify. The parking that was required was 66. We provided 66, so we were in accordance with the ordinance. It was more than we felt was needed, but we provided that to comply with the
I
ordinance.
understand that, but at the last time, we were going back and forth with this on the parking issues, if it was really 66 that were required, or 74 according to our ISO standards. I'm just reading the resolution of what we went through last time.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just in an attempt to assist, I think if you hear, don't lose your question, because the question is important, but I think if you hear testimony from the executive director and ultimately the traffic engineer, I think that'll help maybe focus at least our argument as to why we think this is a benefit and not a detriment, and why the loss of, what's a net, 8 parking spaces?
I understand what the application is. It's a benefit by supplying a sunroom and another room and all that wonderful stuff. I understand that. Solarium. I understand that. It's just that I'm trying to start from the beginning. that it was a dirty fight last time, so I'm trying not to reopen.
And
That's
Mr.
why I
Kennel,
went to court 3 times.
Mr. Kennel was here for that.
Yes.
I would refer to it as a spirited application rather than a dirty fight. He was here for that spirited application, and he'll be happy when he gets up to provide you with what was done last time and what's being proposed now.
Okay, so parking, okay, fine, that's fine. Terry, on your report, on page 4, required 64 spaces, proposed 56. Required is based on the application last time, and the proposed is what they're doing now. That's what they're removing 8 spaces.
Required is based upon the application at hand and UDO standards. 56 is got to show up.
It's showing what has that, and what did he approve last time?
66.
Was it 66?
Yeah.
So it was 2 more than we required?
I don't remember what
I remember last time we didn't have a parking variance. We talked about parking a lot.
Because there was a whole discussion, is it under
Yes.
RIS standard for senior care, and if we need
Yes.
74, or is it senior living, and if we only need 66?
Right,
That was
the difference basically
that was the
is,
discussion, the argument that-
right, the difference basically is the clientele, and if the clientele are gonna have cars to be driving or not, and the executive director is here, and he will give testimony on the clientele. So I think when you hear from the other witnesses, we'll have all the facts that are being presented in this case, and then I'm hoping that the testimony will be compelling and your questions will be answered, but if they're not, then we can answer any questions you have at that point when all the facts have been presented.
Oh, okay. I got that.
If I could, Chairman?
Yeah, go ahead.
The resolution 3743 contains a statement by Mr. Flannery referencing 66 parking spaces with the original application. And that met RSIS at the time.
That's at page 3, number 16.
That's correct.
I have it on, yes, I see that. Okay. Okay.
Can't hear.
It says in the resolution, it uses the language assisted living. This is senior living.
Yes.
Is there a
Exactly
definition in
correct.
the
Assisted
ordinance of
living
either one? Is that an
is
RSIS
nursing care.
issue?
Right, senior living is just, is basically private older,
That's not defined in
which
the
in, I
ordinance, is
think in a few years, I'll be eligible to move in there.
Well, except that I'm not so, and I'll defer because I don't have the ordinance in front of me, is the term, I mean, these are at some extent all terms of art, are they not, Mr. Voigt? In other words, senior living in and of itself is not defined in the ordinance.
I'm not that aware.
Yeah, so I think, again, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, respectfully, I'm going to follow Brian's conclusion as well. I think when you hear what's really going on currently, that'll help at least focus the questions that you have. And I think, again, respectfully, if you don't have any questions right now, Mr. Flannery?
No, I'm basically, I am focused on the parking issues in order to get to a final clarification.
So that's a good segue to Mr. Shep.
Let me
Oh.
hear anyone else board.
Just to get clarity, I got a little confused in this last discussion. Is there an ordinance as to the amount of parking necessary for this type of dwelling? We're talking about, I believe the approval was for 60 and older. So what is the, before I was, well, they said specific 60, I don't know if that, whatever it is, something specific, but whatever it is, that was what they were saying, 60 and older.
Yeah, that's
What
all.
is there an ordinance, Brian, that says per unit, what's supposed to be? Is it one, is it 1.5?
Well, the traffic engineer is going to testify on it, but Sean's question was with respect to the definition, and assisted living unit is a dwelling unit varying in square feet from 200 to 500 square feet that provides residential living environment assisted by congregate meals, housekeeping, and personal services. And we are going to have the executive director testify to indicate the way the facility operates and the clientele, so that the board can make a determination which category to fit this into.
So is right now the question, what these units, what they're going to be? Is that what we're discussing? Because that was discussed by the original approval.
Yes.
The original approval was they were going to be living there independently, and possibly they want to be supplying some communal meals as well as, I think, emergency care would be provided for them.
Yes, and all the units are the same. And at the time of the 2011 approval, the board's determination was that we needed 66 parking spaces. And we're here this evening saying to you that the ordinance says we need 66 parking spaces. We think 56 is more than enough. And when the other testimony is presented, that will document why we feel less than 66 is required, even though the ordinance says 66. And that's why we feel the benefits of the room versus the 10 parking spaces, and then the board makes the decision. But I think you need to hear the testimony of...
Again, I just want to know if the ordinance you're quoting now for 66 is an ordinance for assisted living or for independent living, which is this new...
The 66 was specifically for the facility that we have, and that was the determination of the board last time after the discussion. It's
not really an ordinance, it's just saying that the approval was for 66 units. There's no ordinance, it's just a matter of...
Well, no, we talked about the ordinance and what was required at length last time.
And what was that?
66.
And do you remember how that was broken down?
I don't. I can look. Maybe Mr. Kennel does. Terry read the portion of the ordinance, of the resolution that said 66 was required. So after all of the testimony last time, it was the finding of this board that 66 are required. Mr. Kennel will tell you how we got there last time and why, based on his studies, why he thinks we don't need it.
I don't know if it was required or we figured 66 is
Well,
sufficient. But let's hear from the executive director. Let's
First.
get a complete rundown of what's happening so we can continue this discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Somewhat educated.
And just to add to that, and the question as well, I think the point, my argument would be that the resolution as approved is now the governing document. And you'll hear testimony that even the new rooms will meet the assisted living standard.
Someone was sitting there getting it out.
Were you picking it up, though?
Every word so far.
Okay.
Not you.
Okay, but
Brandon. All right, so I'll make sure to move back and forth.
Can you
All right.
repeat what you just said?
The shorter version of what I just said is that the resolution in itself is the governing document now. And that, coupled with the fact that you're going to hear testimony that the new rooms, and there's a slight reduction in those rooms, by the way, are assisted living rooms, and that they meet the
Assisted apartments, not rooms, these are apartments.
apartments, correct. And with that, I'll just turn this over to Mr. Schechter. You've been sworn, correct?
Yes, I have.
How long have you been employed by the current applicant?
Approximately 3 years.
And how long have you been in the industry?
20 years.
Okay, but you've been employed here for 3 years?
Yes.
And your position is?
I'm the CEO of the Spring Oak Senior Living Management, which is the day-to-day operator of the Lakewood Corridor.
So you've...
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Did you pick that up or no? No. You need to repeat it? I'm the CEO of Spring Oak Senior Living Management, which is the day-to-day operator of the Lakewood Corridor.
Mr. Schechter, you've heard the board's concerns already, so instead of me leading you through some questions, why don't you try to address the board's questions first, and we'll try to circle in from there.
Okay.
Before you answer any questions, you weren't here during the last hearing.
I was not.
Okay, so this is totally new to you.
Yes.
Welcome aboard.
Thanks very much.
Okay. I would say, though, that actually highlights the point, is the difference between a speculative application and now is that we have data to prove out the arguments, and that's what Mr. Schechter's here to talk about.
Correct. Okay. So in my 20-plus years of managing the senior living industry, parking has always been something that has been seldomly used by residents, even more so specifically within this community. I can tell you as of today, we have 88 current tenants, of which only 4 utilize a vehicle, and that it would be seldomly as well. So that vehicle usage is not being used on a daily basis, pretty much as an as-needed basis as we do provide transportation for the residents. I could also,
Wait, I'm gonna interrupt you as you go.
absolutely, go ahead.
These 88 current tenants.
Yes,
Are what type of tenants?
they are assisted living
Assisted
residents.
living.
Yes.
You need to say that they're not capable of driving. They're either homebound, sick, need medical care.
No, so-
Or other ways. You can go both ways.
No, so when we use the terminology, just to be clear,
The nature of this type of person is that there is really no much driving going on.
okay, so again, assisted living residents, just to give you that terminology and what qualifies for that, it's something called an ADL, it's an activity of daily living. So when somebody is deemed appropriate for that specific setting, okay, they either need help with grooming, bathing, queuing, driving, transportation, whatever it may be.
Correct.
So not all of them necessarily have that qualification, it's based on an
So it's a balance
assessment.
between both.
Correct, yes.
Now let's go move over. to the
Okay.
next part.
So now I can tell you throughout my career, this industry has evolved as such where assisted living back in probably the late 90s was more of your independent living setting of today, where it has really evolved into a much higher level of acuity setting, where these residents are aging in place with much higher levels of care. Independent living today is what assisted living was of yonder, where, you know, they're residents more in their, closer to their 80s, not so much as what they were back 15 years ago, where they were average age of 65, 70. Now they're in the 80s, 85, and their tenures are transitioning from directly independent living to assisted living. Hence why we're building all those units in that code.
Okay, so what you're building now is continuation of what you had till now?
It's a continuation of care.
Because based on our discussion that we had last time, now you weren't here last time.
I was not here.
It was determined, according to the document, that that is not going to be the assisted living part, like you just described, but it will be more independent living, more age restricted, more senior living, where people will be more freely to do what they want. And if you look at the blueprints that we've given then and today, you will see that there are full apartments over here versus just a room or an efficiency with a kitchenette area. So this will be more of self-dependent people who don't need medical care, who don't need anything else. They'll do their own cooking and their own care and their own drive. And if they so feel like they can do it no longer, they will then move over to the other wing, which will then become the assisted living.
No, not necessarily. No. So essentially, these are more residents, and again, through our solicitation and inquiry with the people that have been calling us about these apartments, you know, asking about what the amenities are. Very low percentage, if very many at all, have asked about parking or asked about a car or having a car. These are residents that are really looking for more of the downsizing, taking away of some of the day-to-day responsibilities. We will be providing meals to them twice a day.
If they so choose to.
If they so choose to, correct,
Yeah.
exactly, yes.
But there will still be a full kitchen.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Now, this is a full kosher kitchen? Is full kosher kitchen there?
Yes, yes.
Are you aware how many within, for assisted living facilities as defined in our ordinance?
Yes.
Are you aware of any other kosher kitchens available in this sort of facility in Lakewood?
Not in Lakewood, no.
So,
Not that I know of.
and so you believe that the facility itself certainly is a benefit to a targeted community,
Oh,
correct?
absolutely. It's definitely a niche community, for sure.
And would you also describe the basis through which you've determined, as the executive director, along with the owners, that the better use of the space is for this solarium or sunroom?
Absolutely. In a senior living environment setting, it's very important to provide socialization and opportunities of socialization for the residents. Obviously, that helps with their cognitive skills going forward, and that's what we want. We want them to be able to go out, use the common spaces that the community provides, not to stay in their apartments, not to necessarily enclose themselves. So again, the betterment of a room like this compared to empty parking spaces would definitely be a betterment for the resident.
I'll agree with you on the solarium. I think it's an important thing for a situation like this. But we have to weigh the difference. What we want, a solarium, or do we want parking? That's basically what's going to boil down in our discussion. Yes, I agree, a solarium is a great thing. People have it. I understand the current courtyard has something similar to solarium, where they have an outdoor yard in the back.
They have a courtyard, yeah.
They have a courtyard in the
Yeah.
back where we can go out. It's a wonderful thing.
Yes.
It's a wonderful place. I've been in the courtyard a number of times, so I know, I'm familiar with this.
Mr. Halverson, you and I are old, I'll even admit, we're old enough to know what the solariums were back at the hotels,
Oh, yeah.
right? So we
I
were,
remember the hotel that was on that spot.
well, that's a hotel that, by the way, just as an aside, kept my father very busy through the 90s, as you could imagine, sitting at your chair.
Yeah, all the drug deals, I remember.
Exactly right, which relates, by the way, to Mr. Flannery's point about how important this particular facility is and the positive change.
That hotel's gone. I'm talking about that. It's over and done.
Just back also to the chairman's question or point, you testified earlier that of the 88 current residents, there are 4 automobiles.
Correct.
Your math may be better than mine, that's a ratio, it's...
What was that question?
Well, I'm really reiterating his testimony that of the 88 current residents, there's only 4 cars.
1 to 22.
That's one.
Yeah, but we're talking about a completely different.
But, what, so,
I'll go back to that same.
well, so, again, Mr. Schechter, if you can talk about maybe in a different way, because I hear the chairman, I think, is focused on that he perceives that there's going to be a different marketing scheme and a different clientele in the 37 new rooms. So can you talk about who you expect to live there based on your experience with this community?
Again, I believe it's going to be seniors that are looking to be closer to family in Lakewood, looking to downsize, and at the same token, looking to give up some of those hassles of day-to-day living. And I would definitely say, having an automobile, taking uptake of the automobile would be one of those, for sure. And again, I want to be very clear, independent living today it may not be exactly what you're thinking, what it was, 10 years, 15 years ago. It's very different, especially in this type of setting where, it's an apartment building with common area on the first floor, where you're really looking at seniors that they're going to be in their, 75 to 80 years.
If I read here correctly, if I saw here correctly, I believe you mentioned, not you, I'm sorry. Mr. Flannery mentioned last time, the testament that the age of the residents would be restricted to 60 and over. So you might have a lot of 60-year-olds moving in, not just 85.
I could just tell you, based on the inquiries that we've been getting, it's been between 75 and 80 for the most part.
Okay, fine, but I still have to be prepared to look at it based on the testimony of the last hearing, that it be restricted for 60 and over.
But that would hold true with the assisted living as well. Yes.
With this increase of tenancy, and the way it's being described now is actually quite different than the way it was presented in the original application, where you're really going to, it's supply and demand. If the market is for 75-year-old people, that's what you're going to have. And those people, for the most part, who live into independent living, they're not going to have cars. They may have a higher ratio than what you have in those who are in the assisted living. But where's your allowance for the staff, the kitchen staff, the workers, and you're going to have
Good question.
a huge increase of people? Where are all these people going to park?
That's a very good question. And as stated by the chairman, it is more of a hands-off type of setting. So where we have 3 various shifts in an assisted living that have different qualifications of staff, an RN, an LPN, CMA, CNA. In the independent living side, or this particular section of the building, we're not going to be providing that hands-on care. So that staff, or that ratio of staff to resident, is much, much greater, much greater.
Is this actually going to be licensed as an independent living building where there are requirements for this ratio of staff per resident? There is no staff.
Well, there is no requirement. There's no requirement, no. So there is no requirement, there's no specific ratio. So essentially, from an assisted living standpoint, the Department of Health, the state of New Jersey, very vague. You just have to have appropriate staffing levels for your resident population. And that's based on whatever they assess.
So again, we're moving from assisted living to independent living, which will now potentially increase the car ratio, because depending on
But
supply and demand.
but again, not to interrupt, if you think about it on the flip side, you don't have the same amount of employees. So it's one ratio going up to the other one going down, where right now, You have employees that utilize parking for assisted living, which is traditional and common, right? And the residents don't, whereas if you had a greater number of residents hypothetically,
I have an answer on that one.
Yeah.
But I think Hal wants to say something before, and I'll let him.
You already have staff in place. So you know how many cars are there now, we'd like to know that. We'd like to know a little bit about.
What was that, Hal?
We should know how many staff members there are now.
Ask
many
how
cars
the
come
employees are
every day
functioning.
into the facility. How many guests come? So we should have some idea that there was a reason for the number of automobile requirements from the beginning.
So again,
What changed that makes it less now if it's still having a certain amount of help and visitors taking place?
So we thank you for the question, because really, you'll see, that's the beauty of this application now, is that there is history there to describe the fact that, first of all, the number of automobiles from the existing residents is much less than what we perceived it would be. And secondly, there is a history as to how the current employees are getting there. And I'll turn that over to Mr. Schechter. Correct.
Okay. Go ahead.
How many in the new building, how many apartments are there?
42.
42. And
37. 37.
Yeah, it's going to be 37. We're dropping.
We lost 5, okay, 37.
when you say that there's, whatever the number may fall out, whether it's 56 or 60, whatever, is that based on the entire building or just the new building?
I wasn't.
That's a question.
No, not 37.
66 was 66 was based on the new wing only.
Now, the parking count that was agreed upon last time was based on the RSIS, which was half a space per unit. Total of 128 units divided by 2 was 64.
128 total buildings
Total,
combined.
yes.
You're adding
90 plus 37, 90 some plus 37 makes 128 total units times half a space per unit. That's how the original number that was accepted when we did it originally, and that's really because the RSIS supersedes the Lakewood ordinance.
RSIS because it's assisted living.
Because it's assisted living. And I could read the assisted living definition from the Lakewood ordinance, and we fit it. It's a facility for older people that has congregate meals and housekeeping, and we have all that stuff, so we meet that. So by the RSIS standards, 66 is the number. We're going to get to where we're explaining that we think 66 is more than we need because RSIS is conservative. They're going to come up with a number that's a few more than you need. We're going to give you the numbers of where it comes up to. If you agree with us, then we're okay. If you don't agree with us, well, then there'll be parking under the building.
These units are going to be rentals. They're going to be market rate rentals. It's not going to be like subsidized by Medicare and Medicaid. So it's,
No.
I should we should put it into the apartment.
Yes.
That's what it is.
It's an expensive apartment.
What's to stop?
Well, wait, can we?
I guess I'll direct this to the power attorney. What's to stop the applicant from ever condoing this building?
Remember what, I'm sorry?
Condoing this building.
It would be approved as rental apartments, it's not a condominium. You would have to file a master deed, it would have to be approved as a condominium.
So that they would have to come back.
Mike.
They would have to come back to this board because the requirements will change.
Well, yeah, and it's approved right now as half assisted living and other independent living / apartments. They'd have to come back to the board. Frank,
By the way, this building is going to have the same ownership title. Property.
Yes.
The building itself is the same as the courtyard
Yes.
below one?
Yes. Can we get back to Mr. Halverson's
Yes.
questions about what the current employees and what that kind of circulation that you've seen with the current employees, how they park, how they get there?
Right, so most of the current employees are busing or carpooling. So they're, most of them are using the economies of scale of public transportation or buddy system. And we've kept, I'm sorry to interrupt, we've kept a log of that, of employees throughout the various shifts on site with cars. We've also kept logs of visitors that have come on site with cars, and also, I guess, management staff as well. which is separate.
But the question is, how many are there employees? It could change a lot between cars and so forth. So do we know the number of how many employees are on a shift and how many guests there are?
Sure. Yes.
Do you know what that number is?
I mean, I do. It would be, see, it varies because, to break it out for you, we have a 7 to 3 shift where we have specifically CNAs, CMAs, LPNs that are designed. I'm only saying because I have management staff as well. That doesn't work, that overlaps between those shifts. So for me to,
But I mean, you have a peak period, so what's the peak period? How many cars are on the property right now at a peak period?
From employees, right?
Employees, yes, no. I mean, how many-
I have that information. Can I just grab it? Okay, so on a peak shift, it would be a total of 16 employee cars. That's pretty average.
When you say employee cars, there's a 16 employees at that time?
That's with cars.
And how many without?
Yeah, but how many employees total, I think was the question the
Yes.
board had.
We have to be prepared if they decide to come, not by public transportation, and not by carpooling, and then each will decide to bring your car.
Well, you know, if I may I make a legal point? You know, Mr. Chairman, you're talking about, and because I sit on that side too, it's not, I think you're respectfully walking in with the wrong presumption, that you have to be prepared for it. One of the reasons we have testimony here is to lay out the basis for this variance. And the better approach today for us, and respectfully for the board as well, is we have real information as to what's going on there. So while I would ask that you focus on the RSIS standards, the fact that there had been a previous agreement and finding as to the 66 spaces that were necessary. And listen, and I mean, I know you're listening to the testimony, but as you hear the testimony, I think we are hopeful, as Mr. Flannery said, that you'll find that experience is bearing out that this particular facility at this particular site creates a use that, my word now, is more urban and more urbane than perhaps putting something out on a 5-acre site where everyone has to park. It's near public transportation and it's used that way. Now it doesn't preclude the fact that we need to get you those numbers. I'm not trying to say that you don't have a right to those numbers. Don't take it that way. But
Sean, the problem is, if it changes, there's no place else to go.
But you have standards to lay out. We'll go through the testimony.
Let's continue. I want everyone to keep track of this whole discussion and know where we're going with this, so we don't lose focus on it. But Sean, you would agree with me. We're here 30 years together, plus, right? The last 5 years, did you see a greater change in Lakewood than you did in the past 25 years? Did you or did you not?
A greater change? I mean,
fight around like cats and dogs with little kids over here, right?
There's changes. There's certainly changes.
Okay, so therefore,
I know, I hear what you're saying.
yeah, since this was approved 2011 till today, even though you're claiming that this is the Bible now, well, we still have to consider today changes.
There's no doubt about that, but I think you'll hear from the testimony that we have real facts here. So.
Fine.
Okay.
It's on the parking issue, because now I want to move forward.
Mr. Shepherd, you had mentioned that you're the CEO
CEO, yeah.
of the courtyard, Spring Oak.
Yeah.
Could you tell me the parking arrangements of the facilities that you have, how many parking spaces they have, and how that works? Because it has to be a standard for assisted living facilities.
As I previously stated, this specific community is very different than any others that I have managed in my 20 years. So I can tell you from my vast experience that the parking utilization at this specific community has definitely been far less than I've seen anywhere else.
So just give me an idea, let's say in Tom's River building, how many parking places?
Tom's River building was much larger. It's twice the size
Well,
almost.
per unit.
Right.
Just give me- Is
Well,
there 100 spots, 100 spots? How many spots do you have?
Yeah, well, he doesn't know. I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay. Next part of the testimony.
Well, they were looking for the total number, roughly the total number of employees that relate to
Right,
the
so-
16 cars.
24.
24.
24 what, sorry?
24 at any one given time?
That's at
24
peak.
employees.
Peak.
24 employees total.
Right.
Peak.
Of which 60 come by car. Okay.
And the rest, I mean, on the old car, you only have 4 cars of residents.
Correct.
And in the worst case scenario, you have 20 cars.
Average.
Okay.
Thank you. I think that right now that summarizes the testimony and the use for Mr. Schechter. Do you have anything else to
Anything
add?
else?
No, I don't.
Okay. I guess Mr. Kennel next?
Well, the rabbi, just real briefly, if you don't mind.
Originally, I...
You was one.
No, he was. He affirmed.
I affirm, yes.
Yes. I think, yes.
My name is Eliezer Elbag, as stated before. I've been, since the inception, I've been the rabbi at the courtyard. And originally, I thought I'd be coming here to describe the importance of a sunroom, of a community room. That I don't think needs convincing, as everyone understands the importance of such a positive effect as it has made, like was discussed before. I myself remember, I used to live on North Lake Drive, what that hotel used to be like. So the positive effect, what this did and had done to the senior community in Lakewood, doesn't need convincing. And that's something that's commendable, and everyone agrees to that. What I do see the discussion is about the parking. I can attest, being there for the past 13 years, that they said the average might be 16 at peak, but currently there's construction going on. So right now the parking lot is with construction vehicles. But before the construction took place, I would say there would be on average 4 or 5 cars in the parking lot throughout the day. I myself took my car just for services in the synagogue, and many times I parked on the street. It wasn't even relevant. So it was, I can attest that it was really an empty parking lot. In addition, from the questions that were very posed, very rightfully so, the independent living, the way I understand, and the way it's even built, it's being built as connected to the other building. Meaning it's not like a regular independent living like we know about in Lakewood, like Country Place or the one on the other one down there. Those are real homes of independent people. They might even have 2 cars, the husband and the wife driving. Over here, it's really built as a feeder to the assisted living. And that's why the previous testimony was that the applications are people in their 70s, in their 80s, who they might be the last thing on their list, might be to give up their license, but they all give up their license. I've seen it. They might hold on to the license in their wallet, but the cars they don't have anymore.
So, Rabbi, may I focus
Yes.
on that point for a second? You've seen some of the applications and inquiries as well, have you not?
Yes, definitely.
And it's your experience based on the inquiries that you're seeing, that based on the inquiries that you are seeing, that even those folks who may be looking for, I'm going to use the term, more independence, when they ultimately decide to go into this building, they perhaps begrudgingly are giving away their licenses.
Yes, definitely, I can attest to that, being on the fact that the setting of this building will be that, and that's most of the inquiries from the potential residents, are where is the synagogue located? If these are people that are just driving around town, they don't have to ask where synagogues are located. You all know where synagogues are at every step, every block there's a synagogue. They want to know where in the building is the synagogue, because the synagogue will be the same synagogue as is used by the assisted living, or might be expanded a little, but it will be, from their questions, from their inquiries, we can see these are people that are looking for a place to be, so to speak, to call home. To call home meaning we have our meals over here, sometimes we get takeout, sometimes we make our own meals in the kitchen, we have a synagogue on premises, we have lectures, we have We have social events.
So talk about that for a second, because it's that point, and the point that even the new folks coming in who will not be driving, isn't it not true that that's what's driving your determination to build
Correct.
that?
Many of the
Talk about
inquiries that I hear about, like I said, of course you can have folks that are going to come and they're going to have their own car. Even currently we have full residents that take their own car and have their own car. But as a general, the focus of the inquiries is the synagogue on premises? What time are the services? What kind of classes are there? Are there going to be community events? Are there going to be community speakers? Are there going to be classes and lectures that we used to when we lived in our previous community, wherever we lived? That is the main focus. They're looking for in-house, independent, so to speak, living, which is different than being the setting, the way it's set up. It's different than the regular independent living, which are regular homes with driveways and parking lots. Even though it's an apartment building, but it's not just an apartment building like we're used to, regular apartment building. It's really just a place that people will come to rent in order to feel part of this current community, which is a community with everything on premises. So the importance of such a room is very obvious. I've seen myself how it positively affects the quality of life for the seniors. It gives them a sense of independence, the fact that they have their on-premises lectures and classes and synagogue and visitors. It's really a community, as you all know, it's really a community facility, and that really is a wonderful thing how it enhances, and a room like that will just add on to this, enhancing the life, the quality of life of the seniors, feeling they have this beautiful sunroom, looking outside, etc., etc. But yes.
Rather, would it be fair to say that when this building was initially architectural, was done and was drawn out, there was no such drawing. Only now, after seeing the applicants coming in, that they are much more senior than anticipated, they need this type of drawing. And that will be a barometer of showing what lack of cars there will be.
Correct. Based on the inquiries, and even though originally they thought they're going to just have more parking spots over there, based on the inquiries that are coming in and the requests of what is important for these potential residents, and on the fact that, like I said, I can attest for 13 years, the parking lot is empty. There's 4 cars, 7 cars. Most of the people are drop-offs. True, that can change, but that's how it's been. Lakewood does change, like you're saying, but that's how it is. These are the type of employees that just come, get dropped off, check them, they click themselves in, and they go and they're there for their shift. So the parking lot has been empty. Based on that it has been empty for most of the day, from employees and from residents. Based on this addition that is not going to be just a regular apartment building with people driving in and out, they feel that even currently the number that they're asking for is more than enough, and there will still be empty parking lot spots.
Okay, I hear what you're saying. Are you done with your witness?
I believe so.
Okay. Let's hear your next one.
Mr. Kennel.
Before we continue, you've been here a few times. You realize that we usually give about an hour for every, 45 minutes to an hour for every application, and then we'll continue the next time around. Right?
We understand that. I know I'm creeping to the edge of this, but we'll be as long or as short as obviously as necessary to make the record.
And we clocked in that we started this at 10 minutes past 8. Okay? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, Mr. Kennel, you've supplied a May 25, 2017 report.
That's correct.
You've heard the testimony and the questions of the board. I'll let you loose.
All right. And to the chairman's comment earlier that things have changed in Lakewood over the last 5 years, yes, I'm very well. How much has changed? But one thing that hasn't really changed is the parking demand. As part of the prior application, there were extensive parking observations conducted in 2010 and 2011, and then as part of this application, I made a number of observations in April and May, and the traffic and the number of vehicles parked are very consistent. They are in the 30 to 35 range, and let me qualify that. I made the point of doing the observations at 3 p.m. when you have the shift change from the morning staff to the late afternoon, early evening staff. So I've picked those peak times when you have the employee overlap and found that the maximum parking was 35 vehicles that were created by this facility. And the same was true when the 2011 application, and they had the 44 spaces, paid parking spaces. At that time, we observed 20 to 20, it would range from 20 to 25 vehicles in that parking lot, but then you'd also have, say, 5 or 7 on Lake Drive, because out of convenience, there are some people who find that more convenient. Parking's permitted on Lake Drive, and because parking's permitted on Lake Drive, that's why they've been able to do the construction they're doing now, because you can only accommodate approximately 8 vehicles on site that won't interfere with the current construction. Right now, the site's parking demand along Lake Drive is approximately 30 vehicles. So that, it goes back to the comment that parking demand for this facility is fairly consistent. And we took what has been recorded and extrapolated that based on the new number of units. As was indicated, there'll be an increase of staff as far as support staff, but from an administrative standpoint, that staff's in place. And from what I understand, they'll be able to accommodate the additional number of residents. And the original application, we use as a basis the RSI as parking standard for assisted living. I've done dozens of applications. I've done research at other assisted living facilities, and it's very rare that you even hit that 0.5. I mean, ITE has collected data at over 40 facilities, and the average parking demand is 0.41. Demand, we're at 0.4, and we're providing 0.44 spaces per unit. So based on historical and the intended continuation of this type of use, it's my opinion that the 56 spaces that are proposed are adequate, and if we follow what is the current parking demand, there would be a need for 50 spaces. So again, that results in a surplus based on current parking demands, parking trends, and that's based on also, the visitor activity. As I stated in our May letter, number of visitors on a weekday is generally average around 13 visitors, and that's through the course of the day, not at one time. It was indicated that at a max you'd have 5 people there at one time. And on Sundays, yes, the visitor activity increases, but the employee staffing is 50% of what is the weekday. So there's the give and take, and it balances out. The long and short of it is, based on historical data, it's my opinion that the 56 spaces will accommodate the additional 37 rooms.
So I have a very simple question. I hear what you said, but based on the Bible, as Mr. Shaw said before, 66 parking spaces, number 16, 66 parking spaces would meet the RAS standard if the facility is classified as an assisted living facility. I think we determined that this new wing is not going to be an assisted living. This new wing is going to be an independent living, and therefore...
Based on my interpretation of RSIS and in doing this as long as I have, they're interchangeable, independent and assisted living. They're all...
How did I guess you were going to say that?
Well, but it's also, if I may, Mr. Kennel, it's also important, and I want to stress this for the record, that it's been testified by both Mr. Flannery and Mr. Schechter that the rooms are designed as assisted living rooms. They meet the code definition of assisted living, which further supports Mr. Kennel's findings that that based on these experiences, one could argue that there is a need of only 50 spaces and there'll be a 6-unit
We had that
cushion.
same exact argument back in 2011.
Uh-huh.
The rooms are assisted living rooms, and when we asked them, why is there a full kitchen and a dining room, living room, and everything else if it's an assisted living? I am sure, if you go upstairs to the rooms right now in the courtyard, there's a room which is an efficiency room with a little kitchenette in the corner of the room for whoever wants to cook, but not the way this blueprint shows me over here, which has a full apartment.
But Mr. Chairman, you've also, I'm
We had
sorry.
that discussion then also.
What are they?
What's the square
What are
footage?
the square footage?
Yeah, there's
The
one-
square footages of,
Right, you have two bedrooms also here. We have a lounge, dining room, kitchen.
The square footage resembled that of the assisted living facility today as well. So it's anywhere from 400 square feet, some of them range upper to 600 square feet,
So the new apartments are gonna be between 400 and 600 square feet?
give or take, yeah.
How many two bedrooms?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Anybody know?
The original plan calls for 3, 2, and then 1 for a superintendent.
Four and one.
Is that what it is?
28 one-bedroom apartments, 4 two-bedrooms, and 1 two-bedroom. 28 one-bedroom, 4 two-bedroom apartments, and another two-bedroom apartment for the super.
Okay.
For the, I guess, for the traffic engineer, I got a question. The two-bedroom apartments, our size is also 0.5?
They recognize that as a unit, correct, and it's 0.5 per unit.
Whether it's a 1, 2, efficiency, whatever.
It's generally because, again, because of the typical age of that type of residence, vehicle ownership, as is indicated, is very low.
Yeah.
And because they have support services, which are on-site transportation, that's how it's factored in.
That's consistent with, we're going back and forth with 56, 66, and I see there's a breakdown.
Yeah, the bedroom count,
Have no effect.
have no effect, it's based on the unit,
based on the unit.
because of the age of the residents.
And isn't it true that, based on your experience, both here and at other places, as testified, that it's within a degree of certainty that the new residents will not be having automobiles?
It's a very small percentage, correct. As was indicated, there's 4, and just to be clear, those 4 residents are, they're trying to hold on to something they have, and for all intents and purposes, those vehicles don't move, and what happens over time, to an attrition, once it's inactivity of that vehicle, then that resident finally gives up that
We
vehicle.
understand how the first original building was being used, and it's quite obvious that right now, according to the resolution, 60 plus can come in, and that's a whole different clientele, and that's kind of why, we're trying to do a balancing act between, the people that are currently living there and their use of vehicles, and then the people that are going to come in, because we can't stop anybody under 60 from coming in, and a 60-year-old
Would be more active, by understanding, but that's not the market target, that the type of resident that comes in.
It's a supply and demand.
Well, it's a supply and demand, but again, generally, these type of facilities, and again, very few, unless there are some other medical needs or whatever, that you have residents that are on the younger side of the threshold. My experience is they're typically, the median age is typically 75, and then they age in place.
Okay. So I don't.
One more question, and the obvious question, and I think I want to direct it to the traffic engineer and our engineer. No one discussed whether or not all the added square footage is going to require additional parking. I know the traffic engineer mentioned, and the attorney, that possibly it has to do with units, but this is something that's going to be open to the public. They can hold public events. I mean, the picture, you can see that. Does this require additional?
No. That picture is all the residents.
If we're afraid of public events, I would agree with you. that we have to-
If you're using the UDO, this requires a variance, and they've advertised for the same. The UDO is based on square footage. The applicant professionals are giving testimony based upon field conditions and based upon the use of the ITE, the Institute of Transportation Engineers manual data, what they expect the parking demand to be for this expanded use.
So I would like, if this goes to a vote, I would like some testimony from the applicant that this will not become a open to public type of room where they can do, a brisk or an event or something where it's going to attract a whole lot of people from outside the building. And so now we have an issue where there's a serious.
I think those are good points. I think that if you're going to entertain approval, you work those kind of conditions and questions in that document.
Yeah, I can make a representation, having spoken with the rabbi who would be in charge of most of those items that you left forward, that the intent is not, this is the representation, the intent is not to utilize this for the public, that on Shabbos, members of the local community, and when I mean local community, within comfortable walking distance for Shabbos, do come for services, sometimes on Saturday, walking.
The question wasn't coming for services, the question is for a seminar.
Well, that's what, I'm trying to, the answer is no. The direct answer to
If
Ms. Eng-
if this does go get approved, you don't mind if we put that in a
This has to
resolution?
be,
That-
I've been
by many since by like a courtyard, and it's relatively what happens there is that if there's a resident there, that they have a great grandson and they're gonna make a risk. So just out of respect for the person who can't go out to another shul, they make it in like a courtyard. If that's the intent over here, then I can't see the courtyard hanging up a sign and saying, we're gonna rent this out for $400 for something.
No, that's not,
It's insanity.
Yeah, no,
I understand, but what happens is that, I mean, just looking at it.
You're both right.
We have a kitchen, we have a dining room, we have a library, just on the store, we have a lounge, we have 3 lounges that are fine, and then a buffet area, and it's kind of, if people that are living there have the right to make birthday parties, to make their own events, which will attract families and outside people, and I just want to make sure that
that's what I'm saying, you're both,
No,
go ahead,
I'm saying
please.
the residents upstairs are going to be able to utilize this area and bring people from the outside to make their own, it's going to be part of their, I'm sure, part of their amenities.
Mr. Chairman, if I could make a suggestion, we could include a condition of approval in the resolution that any events at the facility itself are for a resident or the residents of the facility. And of course, if they have a grandson or family, if it's an event for a resident, they'd be able to invite family, but not rent it out, I think was the.
Definitely not right now.
Or a public event for general members of the public.
Okay. I just want to open to the public, and hear what the public has to say. Anyone in the public want to be heard, please step up.
Mr. Klein, do you affirm to testify truthfully?
I affirm.
Thank you.
We cannot wait to come visit the chairman and other members of the board in this Lakewood courtyard. Hey, it's not, what is it called, Lakewood Courtyard?
Yeah,
or-
Lakewood Courtyard.
No, I think this is a nicer place. As far as this medrash, first time I'm seeing such a good medrash. It has couches. What else does it have? Let me see. It has like these 2 tables over there. I don't even know how it's called. What is that table's called? Does it have a name, those tables?
Round table, yes.
What?
A round table?
No. I'm talking about the game warmer.
Oh, like foosball and all that? Back
No,
there?
no.
You talking about these?
The balls with the sticks. Yep. Pool tables. The medrash with pool tables.
That's how I got through college.
Wow.
Don't bust on this.
I don't know, but I for sure will go down over there. It's such a, it's great.
Who needs to dive?
But as far as the condition that you spoke about putting in the resolution, about not being able to rent out and only people over there could use it and all that, let me just educate you. We had this by the planning board. It was confirmed by the inspection department. There's no way to enforce that. You cannot enforce a use in the building once it's built. They could do whatever they want, they could rent it out, and there's no mechanism in the inspection department to enforce that. So for you guys to put in something of this condition in the resolution when I think, and Terry was here by the planning board when they discussed that the building department, the current building department does not enforce these type of resolutions. It's not enforceable and it just makes it look good because Now you have over here square footage. Again, I'm not against seniors having better places to live and all that, and I'm not going into the argument if there's enough parking or not parking. I think the board is questioning this question, and I think is if you mess this up right in the center of Lakewood, I wish that happens, and everybody will curse you every time they drive through Route 88 and Route 9 over there. If you mess this up, go ahead. This will be a blessing for Lakewood. But I'm talking about counting square footage in a building, and this was not represented over here, that they had to calculate that legally. Legally, they had to use that footage that they're calculating over here, that they're adding, they had to calculate that as far as, I don't know what. And we have this a lot with the planning board, with the simcha halls, what is the calculations? Nobody, and Brian usually doesn't get up and calculate it because it's like a vague thing, what needs to be done. So to come over here and ask for a variance on parking without even saying what the calculation is, and the board should be able to make their calculations correctly, because by the end of the game is people are going to accuse the board, but they'll say, oh, we didn't realize that we're giving a variance on parking on this use, that people are going to come there to daven to help out the seniors with minyan. We have next to Chateau Park, I'm finishing up if it's my 4 minutes up. We have next to Chateau Park, they have a senior something over there going on with, how we call it, the AK people. And there's a lot of people that come from Chateau Park to daven over there. Obviously, not in the weekdays, they use the cars, and Shabbos they don't use the cars, but cars are being used. So again, I'm not against that the board in this case should make their calculation without me interfering, but the variance of the parking should be calculated and not just based on. And then they have a building, that a middle of building, I would suggest, again, I don't know, maybe it's not practical. Let them finish up the building, let's see what the usage is, and if there's enough parking and they don't have to use it. One more question. Why don't they make a parking lot underneath the building?
You have 30 seconds left.
I'm finished, actually. But now I just want to use it up. Why don't you make a parking lot underneath the building? Just a simple question.
Apparently you weren't listening to the application. There was a parking lot underneath the building. We're asking the board for approval to not require the parking lot underneath the building because we don't need the parking spaces. And if you listen to this testimony, the RSIS doesn't say you count up the areas of the rooms. The parking calculation that we need to have, that you wanted, is 66 parking spaces.
What is this sunroom over there? That's an addition.
That's underneath the building. That's going to go where the 10 parking spaces that we're losing were. And we're asking the board to allow us to build 10 less parking spaces underneath the building in order to have a community room that the residents can enjoy. And when you said we need to give the legal calculation of the parking, we gave that. It's 66 spaces. The RSIS, which I know you have a copy of, says...
Thank you for giving it to me.
...says that the number of parking spaces is based on the number of units. And the RSIS is in rural areas, suburban areas, and urban areas. And typically when you get in an urban area like Lakewood is, the parking demand is less than the average.
Was that sunroom underneath the building or above the building?
That sunroom, if you drive out there, you'll see where there's this space underneath the building that can be either parking or a sunroom, and that's what we're asking the board, is to approve the sunroom.
The previous application, this was not underneath the building.
The previous application, the parking was under the building.
We're enclosing the parking to be the sunroom.
Right, but it's not like it was underneath the building and now you're closing it up. It was on the open, the parking, and now you're making it into a sunroom.
No, underneath the building.
Within the building.
Mr. Klein, we want to take a break, and you can look at all the papers and all the maps to give you something.
Okay.
Before we continue, is anyone else in the public want to be heard? Okay, we're singing out to the public.
Mr. Chairman, I'll take your cue. I think I can utilize Mr. Flannery's answer to Mr. Klein as the summation. You all fully understand?
Hold it right there. Hold it right there. I want to ask, we went 10 minutes over time, and I want to ask my fellow board members if they want to continue to close this application, or if they want to either come back next month, or September 11th. Okay? You want to close up, guys? Continue it? Close it up? Okay. Having said that, you guys want to take a break now and come back in? Okay. What? Okay. So we're gonna finish up, and then we're gonna take a 10-minute break. Okay. So having ruled that, we're gonna continue this now.
Well, as I said, Mr. Chairman, I can I'm sorry.
Oh. Ms. Dingman, can you tell us on the record what you're looking at?
Yeah, I asked the
Put them on the mic.
Sorry.
I see on the, what's that, is that the west?
Nothing comes in when you.
Yes.
On the west side of the parking lot where you come in, I thought maybe there could be added a couple of parking spots, so I asked Brian if it's possible to add a couple along the fence on the west side, but he said it's too tight.
It's a driveway, I was there today. I drove it today, you can't. Okay, go ahead.
So, Mr. Chairman, as I indicated, I'll utilize Mr. Flannery's answer to Mr. Klein as the basis of the summation. The board clearly understands the basis for it. I've heard in colloquy, there's a clear understanding that this is a positive to the community, and we believe that positive impact far outweighs any negative impact by reducing the parking based on the specific uses as described here. We therefore believe that we've supported the request for the waiver of the parking requirement, and that this will be a benefit to the community, and that we've mitigated any negative impact.
Guys, you all heard what Sean Gertner and his team presented to us. It's a basic decision that we have to make over here. Do we want a solarium in lieu of 10 spaces? Is it assisted living versus independent living? Is it, if it's independent living, do we feel comfortable with the 56 spaces that they're proposing now as opposed to the 66? Let's also remember that this was an application that was very hotly contested by the neighborhood back in the day, and we were arguing back and forth on this whole entire project back and forth.
One quick question.
Go ahead.
24 employees, that's right now, as we speak, there's only the old rooms that are being used, correct?
Yes.
None of
That
the
is-
40 new ones or 30?
That is correct. And that's why Scott told you what the demand was now and factored in the percentage to get to what we would need. And based on those peak hours that he gave, there's 35 parking spaces now. When you take the 35 divided by 91, multiply it by 128, you come up with 49. So based on that same ratio, it comes up with 49, which is consistent with the Institute of Transportation Engineering.
49 was just the employees?
No, 49 is everybody. We looked at the employees now was 16, and 4 residents is 20. But there's 20, there's...
No, but the employees is not 16. 16 are the ones you took into account that they're using the car.
Yes.
The 24 that you have. You're not using 24, you're using 16.
16 are using the cars, yes.
16 are parking. You're
Six-
saying how many people, but you're not taking into account the entire...
Well, in our opinion, we are taking into account the entire employees because as Scott has indicated, he's done studies on this over the years and it hasn't changed. There's 16 cars that are coming now. That's consistent with what it was in the past. And when he originally did it, it was a smaller facility and it was consistent with that. So the number of employees parking there based on the number of units has stayed consistent. And if we anticipate that'll stay consistent, and my opinion on that it would get lower as Lakewood urbanizes more. Because as Lakewood urbanizes more, there's more public transportation, there's more people in close proximity to take those jobs. So that number isn't going to go up, that's going to go down if anything. So based on that historical thing, based on the number of units, and he also said when you look at the number of units and the number of parking, the number of employees isn't going to go up evenly. because you don't need the management employees. So it's going to be a little less, but he looked at it conservatively, saying it goes up evenly.
So let me just reiterate the numbers, Nathalie. We're working right now with 56 is the final number that you looked
Yes.
at. 16 employees come with cars today.
Correct.
Correct? So that means that we have a leftover, we have a remainder of 40. 30 to 40 cars for how many rooms? 100, how much?
37.
No, it would be all. 128.
There's total 128 rooms.
128 rooms, so that means that's like a quarter of a spot per room,
Yes.
okay?
Some are 2 bedrooms. some
Well,
are
let's not go into, let's just
Oh,
give the benefit of the doubt that it's, the other bedroom is just for the kids that come to visit Bubby and Zane to sleep overnight, to be hang out in the
And
apartment.
and typical vehicle ownership is 1 per 20 rooms.
Okay, that's what that's exactly the point.
Yes.
That's exactly what I was
Right.
saying, right? So now, do we want to take away 10 spaces and put a solarium in, which is not a bad thing, don't get me wrong. I'm not opposed to solarium, but I'm weighing pros and cons. Do I want to lose 10 spaces as in lieu of a solarium, which is a beautiful idea, or do I want to keep 10 extra spaces and not give them a quarter of a space per room, but give them a third of a space per room?
Just to be clear about this, I think originally had 64, and.
Yeah, it doesn't say anything against 64.
But they also dropped 3 rooms, so it's not like a wall.
So how much is per room right now? I'm over the per room right now, that's what we're working on. We're working on
Right, I
per room right
understand,
now,
I
so
understand,
that's,
based on the previous approval.
we gotta be true, we're working on total rooms right now.
And Mr. Chairman, as you said on the previous approval, the neighbors who got notice, who thought there was going to be a parking problem, the last time they came and there was a war. Well, it's been 6 years, and they've seen
I don't
also.
think I wanna go through a war again.
No, there's no reason to go war because they're not here.
Yeah, he's dead, that's also true.
Well, there are other neighbors. And the other neighbors were here.
Yeah.
What are the
Okay.
total amount of rooms for all buildings after the reduction?
137,
128.
128, sorry.
128, so ISR,
ISR should be.
64.
should be 64.
Yes.
Plus, given the benefit of that, 16 spaces for 16 employees.
Well, no,
No, not
the
plus.
RSIS includes those.
Oh,
wait, whoa,
I'm
whoa,
sorry.
whoa.
I'm sorry.
RSIS includes that difference.
Got it. I apologize. Okay.
I want to say one last thing. We're looking at the parking as opposed to the solarium.
That's
Really,
what it is.
Solarium
the
is supposed to be-
solarium is huge. We can also, doesn't have to be that big either. If we're looking at what, look at that picture, you look at what's going on here, the amount of space that was taken away for those 11 spaces doesn't.
Here, take a look, it's right here. This is, let me give you a better picture. Here. This is the space. Yes.
They're also looking aside from the solarium, they're also looking
Maximum.
for a side yard setback.
Now, all the setback variances, all the bulk variances are the same. The building is up. If you drove by there today,
Yeah, I
it's
saw.
the same building. So we're either going to have a solarium under the building or parking under the building, nothing different.
That's basically what it is. A solarium or parking, you know? Okay,
Gentlemen,
so,
this is taking a long time. Can I make a suggestion?
go ahead.
I feel that this is, to have
I'm
a-
holding my coffee for 20 minutes already.
okay, to have a solarium, I think we're much better off than having 10 parking spots that are never gonna be used. I know the building pretty well. There's nobody there with cars. I think you said before, it was 4 people with cars. That's the clientele. The apartments are very small. People moving in there are not moving in there with only cars. So if I can make a motion to approve this application, I'm wishing them a lot of good luck.
Okay, so I have a motion from Mayor Gelli, and can I have a second? Second from Judah Rivia. Madam Secretary, roll call, please.
Mr. Gillen.
Yes.
Mr. Halverson.
Yes.
Mr. Naftali.
Yes.
Mr. Ribbiat.
Yes.
Mr. Inger.
before I vote, are we having that condition that the.
Yes, it's, if I may, it's agreed upon, and I'll work with council.
Mr. Ricker's already agreed to that.
Yes.
Mr. Halverson.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mr. Halverson.
What should I say, no? Doesn't make a difference.
So yes.
Okay?
Said yes.
Say yes. All right.
Thank you all very much, and thank you for the courtesy, the little extra time. Thank you.
All right. We'll be back in 10 minutes, and we'll continue with appeal number, where's my calendar here? Appeal number 4037, Zonny Rosenberg.
No, two decks before us.
Working on that, so much fun. All right. Thanks. Brian, thank you. We should have upped the restriction.
What are we doing?
I don't know, what are you? What?
I think one would take a long one.
They just went to a Cubs game. Yeah. They went, they left like last Wednesday. DPW or municipality?
Down Friday afternoon. Pushing the property, part of the state. There was a motion on. Right. There was a motion on.
Judge Rowe?
She did it the first day. This thing's been ongoing. They got like 100% page motion. She got I didn't get it.
Really?
I used the well, 5 minutes, perfect.
It's her first meeting.
Right, she's like, send it over. She's like, I read it.
Oh, it's a great game. No jury trials, I mean, just, the calendar's so light. Hang out with Hawk and Randall. Yeah, right.
It's going on.
I'll see you for breakfast sometime.
What is that?
For a jacket?
Yeah, you just come up here.
No, I don't think it. Yeah.
Take back liquid, throw it out the yellow.
Yep. Yes. If they say yes.
By the way, I think we need to read.
I'm sorry, sir?
Thank you for being professional. Always. When you dealt with people. It's not always like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, tight over there.
No big deal.
Thank you, Steve.
Sorry.
wasn't there for that one. Back variances, decide what they want to do with the minor subdivision. I'm sorry? This is taking place in their August meeting. They went through a significant number at the July 10th meeting. They had one record on my father. Yeah, no, they're actually probably have another 4 or so that haven't. Oh, that happened. So at least that. I think part of it is that we realize that we're not getting all this meeting, so I'm rushing. September. Yeah, no, yeah. Right. This isn't bad. I sit there the following day, but it's planning board is not as start at 6.
That's how the counter, Lakewood Zoning Board was at 6, or I think maybe it's at 6:30. That half hour.
I wish all.
Oh, makes all the difference.
I wish all.
Makes all the difference.
I have one bridges, both stories. Worse that we have. I don't do it much. He's Brunswick. I always have the word like I think 7 hours.
I think 7:30.
This one is.
I have noticed that the are very strict.
Yes. Well, they'll typically say, we're not going to start a new application. Which they really want to require. And usually with that kind of meeting, it's not unusual to see a major application, 2, 3, 4, 5 meetings, depending on how complicated it is and how much public comment. We had an application in Brunswick, we're having the 31st meeting, this is like the 5th or 6th here, it's like, it just keeps going, because yeah, what's your take? An hour and a half. Who knows how the process?
That's not gonna change.
Oh, yeah. We have this expansion.
They might say, okay.
That's on the fringe of water.
I don't know.
This thing, they must have had at least
They don't play up the pitch. And they could take the delivery, I think 30-day delivery.
I mean, they're all good. They're all going up.
Playing with it.
Yeah. I was talking to the attorney.
I can't know for sure.
Okay. Right.
Rosenberg. 4007, okay. Appeal number 4037, Zalmi Rosenberg.
God bless you. God bless.
Mr. Rosenberg's here, I'm ready to testify.
Swear. Mr. Flannery, do you
Yes.
swear affirm?
One second.
I'm sorry.
Brian didn't read it.
Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me.
Hold on, there's somebody missing. We have a member missing. Okay, you can read it to the record, go by
Small Money Court Lot 171, Lot 4.03, R75 zone, construct a 15 by 16 deck in front yard setback 34 inches above ground. Required 25 feet, proposed 4 feet. From Terry Road Engineer Planner, June 28, 2017. The deck encroaches into a 6-foot wide shade tree easement. The applicant is requesting bulk variance relief for reverse front yard setback for deck, 4 feet requested, 25 feet required.
Thank you, Mr. Flannery. You swear affirm to testify the truth in this matter before the board.
I do. Brian Flannery Jackson, New Jersey, licensed professional engineer and professional planner. I have two exhibits. A1 is the map showing the subject property and where the deck is. A2 is a map that shows this lot colored in orange, and the board's probably not surprised, the one next to it, which is the next item on the agenda, is colored in blue.
Turn the mic, please. Thank you.
The application is relatively easy to explain. The applicant bought a home. The builder told him that after he got his CO, he could put a deck up, there's no problem. He's being a homeowner and not understanding the rules, he did that. The building department saw the deck and he has a violation. So now he's here begging for mercy from the board to allow the deck in the backyard. And the backyard fronts to East County Line Road. It's a situation that for the family to have the place to use, this is the deck that was built. It's out there. Terry has questions about what the deck is. It's a wooden deck. When we look at the circumstances, if the board remembers, 2 years ago, the deck didn't even need to comply with the setbacks. So if it had happened 2 years earlier, there was no violation and the deck could remain. I know the board goes out and looks at it. There's a 6-foot fence, a privacy fence around. If the Sukkah's boards weren't up there, nobody would have even seen it. It's, the impact really would be on the neighbors when we open it up to the public. We'll see if there's any neighbors other than the one neighbor who's also going to be here asking for the same variance. When we look at projections into required yards, there's, the reason the governing body changed it is that they said, we got to make sure there's room to get around. We got to make sure there's adequate access for emergency personnel, and they just changed it to now the decks have to comply. And the township is looking at that as part of the master plan to come up with standards for decks. The old standard used to be 36 inches high. As long as the deck was less than 36 inches high, which this complies with that, it's 34 inches high. It can be in the setbacks. If they did a raised concrete patio here, they could do that in the setback. That doesn't help anybody. Now it's concrete. The kids playing on concrete, it's not as good for them. What's there now is what's best for their family and their children. But if we look at the design standards, section 18-818 on projections into required yards, it indicates that handicap ramps can go into the required yards, but you need to have at least 3 feet from the property line from any place that's 3 feet above grade. And that's a standard that establishes what kind of room you need in order to have access to get around and emergency access. Basically, we're here asking for a C2 variance, the municipal land use law. C2 variance says where in an application or appeal relating to a specific piece of property, the purpose of the act would be advanced by deviation from the zoning requirements, and the benefits of the deviation would substantially outweigh any detriment. So in a C2 variance, what the applicant needs to demonstrate is 5 things. First of all, he's got to show that it relates to a specific piece of property. And this is a unique situation. It's a duplex development that was built near County Line Road with access from Apple Street. A deck is already built. We have to show that the purposes of the municipal land use law would be advanced. And that's NJAC 40:55D2. Under the purpose of the act, it's to encourage municipal action to guide the appropriate use or development of all lands in the state in a manner which will promote the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. And this will certainly promote the general welfare of the family. The deck itself you don't see because the fence is there. The structure for the sukkahs will certainly come down after the holiday, and I think it's, as far as the sukkah structures, the ordinance indicates, regulations for that, and they would certainly apply to the building department to comply with them. So you also have to show that the variance can be granted without any substantial detriment to the public good, and basically that's impact on the surrounding properties. My testimony is that as you drive down County Line Road, you see basketball hoops up, you see play equipment, you see other things. It's not like you don't see anything. Lakewood is a city now, it's an urban environment, and you see that. So from that standpoint, it's my professional opinion that you don't have any substantial detriment on the public good, and notices were sent out to everybody within 200 feet, and certainly if there's neighbors that feel differently, that would be something the board should take into consideration. The variance, you have to show the variance will not impair the intent and purpose of the zone plan and zoning ordinance, and again, I don't think this really has an impact on those ordinances. 2 years ago, this would have been okay and there'd be no problem. I'm thinking that after the master plan is done and they enact some ordinances, it'd probably be okay again. And then you have to show that the benefits outweigh the detriments. And the detriment comes from an aesthetic standpoint and an impact on the neighbors. And it's my professional opinion that that's de minimis. And the benefits to this are they don't have to undergo the expense of tearing down the deck and building a patio that's not as safe for their kids and doesn't accomplish very much. So based on that, it's my testimony that the board can grant this without any detriment to the zone plan and zoning ordinance and without any substantial impact on the public good. I think it's a simple application to explain what we're looking for. It's a hardship for the applicant because he didn't know what he was doing and got here. And we're hoping that the board will have mercy on him and not make him tear down a deck that he built not knowing he was doing anything wrong.
I heard what you said. I just had one big problem, one big issue. This application was originally approved on the condition that there will be no decks. I don't think you were the engineer at the time. Blue lines, blue lines.
Right.
And besides that fact, he is in the sheet trade easement, so he's not 4 feet from the fence. So he's about 18 feet. Is that what the deck is? The deck is about 16 feet.
Yes.
Sorry. 16 feet in an approval that we originally gave on condition that there won't be a deck here. not there and not on the other side, on the other houses facing the single-family house on the other side. I have a little issue with that, when we specifically said, no decks, patio, by all means, you know, that's fine. A raised patio, great.
And unfortunately for Mr. Rosenberg, yeah.
I don't think we can make this board that can't go to court and just do what that, you know, do whatever, so I'm sorry. So-
well, and certainly if the builder had done this, you know, there'd be no sense.
Nobody could do it, so let him take it over the board. You know, and that's my opinion. I had here 6 other fellows, they disagree with me, I'll be all smiles.
Jim, just to add what you said before, you mentioned that he was told after he closed it he could do it. So that means you knew something was wrong.
Well, me and you would know something was wrong when you say that. Somebody that's buying a home doesn't necessarily know.
He does have good attorneys, people representing him, because if you look at closing, he walks him the whole way through the whole process of buying a house. And ignorance of the law is not an excuse.
It's certainly no excuse, but that's why he's here asking for the variance and asking for the board to look at the benefits versus the detriment.
It's heart-wrenching for, at least for me, to sit here and to decline such an application, knowing what goes into putting up a pool on something like this. On the other hand, like the chairman says, it's turning into a little bit of a joke. We specifically made this application, approved it with no decks. So what are we supposed to do?
You know, the building, we even went ahead and put in a double sliding door. I wonder why. No decks were allowed. Why?
Through the chair?
What?
Through the chair?
Yes, go ahead.
And Brian, my question is, did he get permits to build a deck from the township?
Obviously not.
No, that's
So he just did it on his own, no permits, nothing? I wonder why.
I don't know if it's a safe structure.
That's what I'm saying. You know, the purpose of getting permits and inspection on situations like this is to make sure that it's a solid structure, exactly what my colleague is saying. So we don't even know if that's a safe deck. Who approved it? Who said it's a safe deck? Let it go.
Obi, just to help you out here, if we do approve this and it does get approved, he will have to go through the inspection process to make sure that it's safe, and the inspection process is going to deal with it. That's a different story. That's
Yeah, but I'm just saying, before it was built,
Couldn't get a permit, it's in the setback.
that's what I'm saying.
You couldn't get a permit.
Right.
So
You wouldn't be here, Brian. Really, you
right.
wouldn't be here. Ask yours, please.
Well, the structural stability of it is something that can be determined after the fact.
Yeah, that's
Right, and I don't think the board is hesitant because of the structural integrity of it. I think the board's more concerned because you told the builder he can't have decks, but the builder put sliding glass doors on there and sold it to the applicant.
Could it be for a patio? I mean, I have a patio home, and it works very well. I put my children on a patio, the kids play on patio, I have a swing on patio, swing and shine. There's nothing wrong with the patio. You said before the patio doesn't work. Why does the patio work?
Well, I think if he hadn't built a deck already and he was faced with a patio or a deck, but at this point, he's going to be looking at demolition of a deck and then construction of a patio. And I think as far as anybody driving by or any of the neighbors, whether it's a patio or a deck, you're not going to know. The only thing you know is there is based on the...
Sure you'll know if it's a patio or a deck. If there's a patio there, you won't have the high fence sticking over the fence, over the 6-foot fence.
Well, if the high fence is removed, you don't see it either.
You don't see what?
You don't see the deck.
If the high fence is removed.
Yes.
I see a deck there, what am I going to see?
Well, you're not going to see a deck because there's a fence in front of it.
That's what I'm saying. The deck right now is above the fence in front of it. If there's a patio, you won't even see it, but there'll be a Caroline Road fence. I'm not talking about the gate of the deck. I'm talking about the fence of the property.
Right, so the fence of the property is there, and behind the fence
Is the deck wall. There's a deck gate.
How much space is there between that's
4 feet.
Mr.
the end of the deck is 4 feet?
Oh, hold on, I think our person wants to say something.
Through the chair, I think we both have a question, though. There's been some comments back and forth that a deck was that, a condition of the prior approval was that no deck would be on the property. We just got the two previous resolutions. I want to make sure that I have everything that everybody's talking about. The resolutions that Terry and I just read don't have any condition with regard to a deck. So, where did that condition come
Just
from?
because the deck would be in the setback.
In a setback.
Oh, all right, okay.
That's where it came from. I remember this approval.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify
Because
that.
that-
It's not reflects.
It didn't have to reflect the resolution because we didn't give a variance for a deck with the rear yard setback.
Okay.
That's why.
Which
That's
is
the whole-
why-
This is the whole purpose.
Which is why they didn't get a permit.
Which is why they didn't.
Because it would have been turned down at the permit level.
There was no variance requested for it.
Mr. Chairman, if you remember a few months ago, we had a similar case. The builder built a whole row of houses, Mrs. Weinstein came, representing all the new buyers, that they all put up porches, and all the porches were illegal, it should never be there, but please, we're begging of mercy, it's up already. And we allowed it. We gave in, because
There's a big difference.
I'm not saying we should do that again now, but it comes to a point where, like you say, it's a little bit of a joke for it. If we make an approval and there's no porches or it's not in the plans, so it's not a willy-nilly split, you can't just put it in one.
By Mrs. Weinstein's issue, there was like 10, 15 feet left in the back. Here we have nothing.
Nothing.
And it didn't.
Here we have 4 feet, considered nothing. Of the 4 feet, 2 feet is in the sheet trade easement.
And about 2 months ago, we had this guy who built a massive porch.
Wait,
an
take it down.
extension,
Take it down.
Take it down. And then now he kept it up, so just ladders and just a stairway and just a little
For
platform.
landing to go down.
For landing to go down. Let's see this one.
Well, and the one that you're referring to that you denied and you told them you had to take it down, there were neighbors that came out and they said it was a detrimental impact.
Yeah.
So that's what the municipal land use law says you have to view when you're looking at a variance. Does the benefit outweigh the detriment? So there the detriment was the neighbors. The neighbors said it was aesthetically bad. It was, so, you know, there was a clear case for the board to decide that the benefits didn't outweigh the detriments. There were clear spoken detriments from the neighbors. Here, we haven't opened to the public, but
There is no neighbors, the neighbors is County Line Road.
No, I'll tell you even further. I'll tell you even more. Here, the zoning board said no deck by the original approval.
yes, but the zoning board said that to the applicant, and the applicant said something different to the purchaser.
Okay, so let it take it up with the applicant. Okay, are we gonna spin this in circles?
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
who was the builder?
I have no idea.
Toma?
Toma.
Toma?
Toma.
Toma.
Hold on. Gideon.
Can I ask your client a few questions?
You need to be affirmed.
And would you affirm to testify here truthfully, sir?
Yes,
And receive your name for the record.
Zombie Rosenberg.
And his address is, answer the application.
Can you describe to me what was was it steps, was it just no steps?
There was just
there
a-
actually
There was just a fence on the sliding door.
on the sliding door? Didn't that raise a red flag to you? I mean, every house in Lakewood is built with a deck, and all of a sudden this building decided to put a door and not put a deck. That did not raise a red flag? Door steers, I mean, like, did he expect you to just look like that forever, walk out and just pull it out? Like, what were you thinking here?
They got the CO. The sliding doors were in and they were locked, I presume something was put there. No steps, nothing. They could not get out that sliding door. Because the door was locked.
But there's a fence there on the other side of the road. On the other side.
Right.
Well, they shouldn't have gotten a CO at the time, and then
I
these,
just want to know
And
what
then
fee
evidently
was
somebody
thinking.
told them after you get the CO, you
Did you get a credit for no deck when you bought the house?
He did give us credit for a deck.
He did give you credit. So
Yes.
why, if he's gonna pay for it, why wouldn't you build it?
he told us that that he had some issue with the zoning board why he couldn't build the deck. He did not make clear to us that it's a setback. He just had said something that he couldn't get it through with the zoning board, whatever, but once you close, you shouldn't have a problem putting up the deck.
I really hope that whoever's watching this should know that when a builder tries to deceive the client, that if there's a red flag, you really should look into it. I mean, every house in Lakewood is built with a deck, and the guy is gonna give you a credit for one, indicated he had an issue, and boarded it up. I mean, and you're within feet of a really busy street. You know, you should have kind of understood that you should look into it before, you know. No, I feel bad that you ended up, you ended up in this situation, but like, you know, I can't say it's for sure the builder's fault, because if he would have built it, then he would have got stuck with the violation.
Well, the builder could have done what he represented. He shouldn't have gotten a CO the way it was.
He shouldn't have.
He shouldn't have, because there's,
One second, Mr. Chairman, if he did get a CO, maybe there was a couple of wooden steps leading down to the little grass.
no, the applicant said
There were no steps.
there were no steps. So he should have at least had to put steps in and probably put in the patio that he said.
Is it wouldn't fix the gate and the doors were screwed shut, maybe they'll lock it shut so you can't do anything about it. Okay, anyone from the public want to?
Mr. Roser, just a quick question. When the deck was built, did you hire somebody to build the deck, or did you do this by yourself?
I had someone help me with it.
So you actually did it by yourself?
Yeah.
So you don't even know if the deck is built properly?
I had someone advise me and help me out with. I had someone help me with it, so a professional.
Someone designed it and helped them build it the proper way. Okay, anyone in the public want to be heard on appeal number 4037, Zalmi Rosenberg, please step up.
Mr. Klein, do you affirm?
Yes.
Thank you.
One second, I gotta get my clock on. Won't go to Mr. Klein, sorry. Just-
Okay, I don't know if the zoning board is playing dumb or they don't know. But let me educate you what's going on in Lakewood. We have thousands of basements, of duplexes and basements that is rented out in Lakewood. And none of these residents that rent it out know that it's illegal to rent out, but they do it. We have hundreds of decks. I don't know where you live, but in the developments where I live, everybody extends the decks in the setback, everybody does whatever they want, nobody gets caught. The reason why this applicant got caught is because he lives in county line. But I don't feel that it's right that the zoning board is claiming is, hey, you did something wrong. Everybody does it. The whole town does it. You can't pick on this guy. Everybody knows this is what developers do. They put these the railing by the door and you finish it up afterwards. That's the way you do business in Lakewood. So to come and penalize a guy because he lives in county line and he got caught, I don't think it's the right thing. But let me speak about the decks. I think it's a big difference when a developer comes in originally and he wants to build the deck in the setback, and an end user comes in afterwards and he says, okay, I don't like the way the land is, I want to have my kids playing on the deck, it's more safer, it's more convenient. I don't think there's, again, I agree with that with Brian, this thing should be changed, but again, the developers will take advantage of it. But I think that decks, as long as it gets usable space and you use it, it's not too much above the ground and it's like the ground level 3 feet up and it gives the end user a better use of his unit. I don't think anything is wrong with it. I think it's a good thing. And I don't think is that, again, I don't know this applicant. It's only the first time in my life over here. But to penalize somebody because he lives on county line and he got caught versus the whole Lakewood, I don't think that zoning board should play dumb. It's done all over Lakewood in every development. They extend the decks without permits. Yes, without permits. They don't come to the zoning board. It's done without permits. I live in a development. Almost every unit extended their deck without permits. Thank you.
Okay.
Just for the record, me and Mr. Klein agree on something. I think that's historic.
Anyone else wants to be heard on appeal number 4037, please step up. Seeing none, we'll close to the public. Okay, guys, can I have a final comment or motion? What else you want to do?
I would like to ask Brian, assuming that this does not go into, how much has to come off this deck if he wasn't going to extend it in any type of shade tree?
2 feet would need to come off the end of it to be out of the shade trees.
But that's still only 6 feet from the property line.
Yes.
And if you took off, if you made the deck 10 feet coming out from the house, how many feet would be left from the end of the deck?
10 feet. And the way the support system is for it, to come 10 feet out would pretty much be taking the whole deck. Well,
Yes, he has to get inspection. So either way, you're going to have to dig up his footings and it's going to have to
well,
be inspected.
it could probably be inspected by a private company that would go underneath and do the inspections without tearing the whole thing up. And if 2 feet was taken off the end, that could be done without compromising the integrity of the entire thing.
I don't know what my colleagues feel. I have an issue with this application, but I feel I would possibly agree that if it only came out 10 feet and it got inspected and looked properly, I may be okay with that. Just a common sense.
Okay.
The problem is that there's another one coming up exactly the same.
Let's do another one next month.
Okay, can I have a motion, please?
Okay, nobody's making a motion, I'll make a motion to deny this application. It hurts me to do this, but it's just the builder knew, the buyer knew, and it would just be made a fool of, sitting here hours and hours, making good, hard decisions, and then it's a good, so my motion is to deny this application.
I'll second it.
I have a motion from Mayor to deny and a second by Obie Gonzalez. Madam Secretary, roll call, please. Just remember, yes means approval for the denial, and a no means approval
A
for
yes
the...
means to keep it as is.
No, yes means the denial.
A yes is no.
Yes,
Keep it
it's
as
agreeing
is.
to
It's
the...
in reverse. It's in reverse.
Mr. Gilli,
Yes.
Mr. Halverson,
Yes.
Mr. Naftali,
Yes.
Mr. Vivian,
Yes.
Mr. Inger,
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Yes.
Mr. Halberstam.
I guess so. Yes. Makes a difference. Next one. Who's the next one? Franco.
4034.
4034, Franco.
Right, 600 Ports Lot 171, Lot 4.02, or 75 zone. Construct the 16 by 20 deck in front yard setback of East County Line Road, required 25 feet, proposed 4 feet. Terry Road Engineer Plan, June 28, 2017. The applicant is seeking variance relief for an 18-inch high, 16 by 20 deck with reverse frontage along East County Line Road. Deck encroaches 2 feet into a 6-foot wide shade tree.
Mr. Flannery, you swear affirming to testify the truth in this matter before the board?
I do. Brian Flannery Jackson, New Jersey, licensed professional engineer and professional planner. Now, there are some differences between this application and the other one. The main difference with respect to the application is that the height of the deck is only 18 inches high. So it's
18 inches above the ground?
18 inches above the ground.
Okay.
So it's barely visible. The other circumstances with respect to this application is that the applicant has a child with Down syndrome that needs a safe place to play. Their deck also is a Trex type material, so it's a much more expensive deck. The previous application had the sukkah supports up that you could see. This deck, nobody's going to even know it's there. It provides something that a family needs. I would give you the same testimony as far as the builder didn't tell them that they innocently put this up. And I can go through all the same justifications in the ordinance, but
Before we go through the justifications, what's the height limit to consider something a patio?
if this was
Ground
built,
level patio, is it a foot? Is it what's called a raised patio? Where am I?
you could have a raised patio that's 30 inches high. There's no restriction on it.
So what's a raised patio?
But certainly,
Hold on a second. Terry, what's a raised patio?
I'm not sure I have a definitive answer, but I know that the old school thumb under the old ordinance was that if it was more than 3 feet, it was considered a deck, and if it was less, it was not. Is that correct, Brian?
that is correct.
Okay. Okay. So we have 18 inches over here, which is a foot and a half off the ground.
Less than 3 feet, obviously.
Yeah, foot and a half.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
So that's how the circumstances are different. It's the same builder, it's the same circumstances with a couple that, a family bought a home. They were told you can put it in after closing. They had a patio door with a gate across it, and they built it. So again, we're down to the benefits outweighing the detriments. There's absolutely no detriment on this case in that you can't see it, and the benefits on this one are greater in that it's a family that really needs a deck, and they need a deck of a size that their child. 8 years old.
Fine, who built it? Did they ask the same thing?
Was it built by a professional?
Who's built?
Yes. That's the whole point. They built a road so you don't see it because it's right below the fence line. Built it over the fence line. That's the whole point.
It was some handyman that they hired.
So they
Not,
didn't do it.
no, they did not get a permit.
So we don't know if this is safe and sound.
Well, certainly, if the board were to act favorably on this,
The inspection department has to do an oil inspection.
the building department, right.
Right.
And there would have to be,
Is there a way to lower it a little bit more? Like a foot off the ground, so just keep it as low as we can? I know that. Can we lower it a little bit, or? Can we drop it a little bit?
if you have something
So
that's
it's totally-
3 feet high to
First
drop.
of all, wait 1 second. We have to deal with this easement issue, which we have to take care of. So we have to push it back. We have an easement
Okay.
issue.
Well, you have a shade tree easement. What the shade tree easement is there for, if somebody in the future wants to plant shade trees, there's a place for them to put it. We put driveways in shade tree easements. We put all kinds of things in shade tree easements. So if you drove past there, nobody's ever going to put anything in that shade tree easement.
But at least there's out, at least there is something.
All right, well,
Brian wants to say something. Please have a sworn in.
No, our,
Yeah, you're sworn in.
sorry, okay.
Do you affirm to testify truth in this matter? before the board?
I affirm.
And
Bashi
your-
Franco.
Thank you.
I think that, Bashi, I think that our property is a little bit further away from county line. The way that it works is it goes like a little, if you see the way the gate is constructed, the 6-foot gate, the gate is constructed on an angle. And I think that I'm not 100% sure, but I think we might be further away from the county line road.
I don't see it on the site.
Okay, then that's what.
Okay.
Brian, on the stairs going down from the side of the road to the...
Yes.
Is there a platform there?
Excuse me?
What he said, how many steps are there from the house to the deck?
I believe there are 2. I really couldn't see it. I had to look from the side. I think it's 2
And then
steps.
from the deck to the rest of the grass is...
I would also think another 2. without going in their backyard, which I didn't do. I was trying to look through the fence and look from the side, and you really can't even tell it's there.
Hang on a second, I see something.
And the answer to can it be lowered, you'd have to take it apart in order to lower it. If it's a higher deck, you can jack it up and lower the things and then drop it down, but there's no way to get underneath a 12-inch deck to drop it down.
18.
Well, 18-inch, the chairman was saying maybe 12. You can't get under an 18. If you got under an 18 and cut something down, there'd be no way to lower it down.
Would your client agree to at least take it out of the easement?
Got it back.
Setback?
We're gonna have to go. These are going to have this expensive life, this will be, carefully, I'll be able to get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't looked at it to see if you could take anything off the end without redoing it. The applicant's saying they would be happy to do that if it can be done.
From the picture, it shows that the main beam is about a foot and a half in from the picture I'm seeing here. If you want to take a look at this photo that I have here. It's an overhang. While you look at this, let me open to the public. Anyone in the public wants to be heard on appeal number 4034, please step up.
I affirm.
Mr. Klein, you affirm.
Yes. I'm sitting over here and I'm totally shocked. Developers come in over here, they get away from going to R40 to R12, they get away with everything. And then it comes individuals over here that did something that everybody in Lakewood does, and they get penalized. I don't know how the board has the heart. I saw it in the previous application, and I see it in this one too. In this one I even see it more. I don't see where the board has the heart to deny these applications when they give these lenient way to the developers that they should make a ton of money, and when somebody wants to build something to make it more convenient for their life, they're just being tough. It's mind-boggling that this is what's happening. This is how boards in Lakewood are treating people. It's like, I think this is only a zoning board issue. I don't think this would have ever happened in the planning board or in any other committee, but it's totally, I am sitting over here and I am like, my eyebrows and everything is like, what did I just watch? And as far as this deck, just asking a question, could the ground be raised a little bit? I'm just asking from Terry if you want to answer me.
I don't know, it may be possible to raise the ground, but you have to be careful if you do that. Are you creating drainage problems on the side of the home? That could be problematic, frankly. Could it be possibly? But that's not a simple fix and not creating other impacts.
I'll just say an example. When you put a patio, it goes on the ground.
Correct.
So let's say I'll put 2 bricks, 3 bricks, and go up. Technically, it's still ground level.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever they will put underneath this deck, if it's wood or anything else that creates it to the ground level, should be kosher. Just asking a question.
Let me ask the zoning officer, is that your interpretation?
On the ground is ground.
Yeah, but I'm raising the ground. I'm not raising it with.
Anything that's not considered connected with permit of pavers or concrete.
Yeah, but I could. What is the 2 things?
Pavers or concrete.
Pavers or concrete.
Pavers or
So if he technically goes and he does like concrete blocks or anything like that to just fill in the gap, it's called a patio. I'm just thinking Jewish. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, can I have a final comments and a motion?
I want to make one comment. I think one of the things that we constantly say that every application has been taken on its own merit. And I think that even though what we saw before, what we see now, they have a lot of similarities, we have to really take it aside and see what's going on exactly. I see from this application that you really cannot see anything. Take up half a foot, it makes absolutely no difference. We are under the 30 inches, 36 inches for sure. And I think the necessity just overrides.
So is that a motion?
And if there's any more comments, yes, I'll make the motion.
Okay, so I have a motion from
I'll second.
Second.
I'd like to second just to make a comment also. It's much lower and it's not so visible from Canton Road. It's not this big, huge building with monstrosity on the side. It's a little bit more modest. So I would, under the circumstances of it.
Do we want to cut it back to the?
No.
No? Okay. Sure. Okay, I have a motion from Abraham Kelly, second by Mayor Gelli. Madam Secretary, roll call.
Mr. Gilli?
Yes.
Mr. Halverson?
Yes.
Mr. Naftali?
Yes.
Mr. Ribbiat?
Yes.
Mr. Inger?
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez?
No.
Mr. Halverson?
Yes. Good night and good luck.
Thank you.
You need to get a permit. Don't forget to get a permit for that day.
I'll see you tomorrow.
You need to have.
You need to get the plan.
You have to get a permanent plan.
Didn't we get that from you on?
No.
No, you need a structural plan for the day.
Okay. We lose pictures. I need those pictures back. Thank you. Okay. Adam?
Yes.
We're at 10:25.
Yep.
11 o'clock, I hit the gavel, we go home. Do you want to proceed? Or do you want to come back next month when you have a full hour?
Gotta proceed.
No problem.
I can't say. We'll do our best.
Yes.
4036, County Line Alliance, 1104 East County Line Road, Lot 207, Lot 1.01 and 3, R15 zone. Create 4 new single-family lots. From Terry Road Engineer Plan, July 19, 2017. The applicant is requesting approval for a major subdivision including use and density variance. We need to subdivide existing lots 1.01 and 3 to lot 207 into 4 new single-family lots. The site contains a one-story dwelling, a pool, a shed, and a parking space. All existing improvements are to be removed. The new lot area is ranging from 11,060 square feet to 11,514 square feet, or 15,000 square feet is required.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Adam Pfefferton on behalf of the applicant. As Fred indicated, we are seeking tonight to take 2 lots that are located on East County Line Road and Bogart Street and subdivide them into 4 lots. The lots are currently in the R15 zone, and we are seeking 4 lots, approximately 12,000 square foot each for each lot. The eastern part, I believe, of Bogart Street is unimproved, and we will be improving that portion along with this application. I have Brian Flannery here to address any technical questions. If I can at this time swear in Mr. Flannery.
Mr. Flannery, if you swear from the testimony truth and matter for the board.
I do. Brian Flannery, Jackson, New Jersey, licensed professional engineer, professional planner. I have 2 maps. A1 is a tax map showing the subject property on the south side of County Line Road. A2 is the map submitted by New Lines.
May 4th, 17th.
It's sheet 3 of 12 of the plan submitted, dated May 4th, 2017. As indicated in the application, it's a 45,000 plus square foot lot in the R15 zone, and we're looking for approval for a 4-lot subdivision. The lots range in area from 11,060 to 11,514 square feet. As such, we need a density variance, which is why we're at this board. A1 shows the subject property. I'm sure the board is all familiar with this section of County Line Road. I've highlighted in blue the projects that were approved, and the projects were approved by the planning board to the east of this site. There was a subdivision, the old Manic property, which was subdivided, and there's 12,000 square foot lots in that. They do have some area that was included in the stream corridor buffer, so they didn't have the same density issue. So they were at the planning board, and they came to the planning board and said, we're not exceeding the density. We want to do 12,000 square foot lots.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
You need to speak up.
Oh,
All the record.
sorry. I'm just trying, I'm trying to associate myself where this property is. And I know that the corner of Brook Road and County Line is where that big Weber development is.
Yes, that's across the street.
That's across the street?
Yes, you can see on A1 where Brook, the intersection of Brook is.
Yeah, I see the intersection of Brook.
I didn't include the tax maps on the other side of the street, but it's right
So this is
at that
diagonally
intersection.
across the street?
Yes,
So they diagonally across the street?
Yes.
Across, oh. This is where the old gray house is right in this corner?
Old gray house.
There's a little dilapidated house in that corner. Is that this corner, or is that this corner?
maybe this one.
Hold on a second. Show me, Brian, come here a second. Where is that Weber,
Right across the street.
this is Weber?
Yes,
This is here?
yes.
So this is where Mrs. Stable lives?
This is where,
This is that?
yeah.
And this one?
Got
Got it, so, got it. Seventh is, okay. So this is seventh right here.
Mr. Rainbow, you need to speak up.
Yes. Well, I'm holding this map backwards. Schuster's farm is here? Not Schuster's. Schuster's this way?
Just to the north.
Okay, so I'm holding backwards. I have, now I have, okay. Now I, okay. So I'm coming up East County Line Road over here. No. No. The other way is that. Okay. Schuster is right here. Okay. I think I'm trying to associate myself where I am. Okay.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to introduce myself as Ronald Ronco, an attorney opposing the application.
Okay. Hold on, would you, Dave? This is that. This is County Line Road. So which county will, where's, let's go this way, I'm coming down. Yeah. Okay, fine. Got it. Let's move ahead. Okay.
So we're on A1. The subject property is in orange. The Manic property, which was approved with 12,000 square foot minimum lots, is one block to the east of us. And then 4 more blocks to the east of us is the Tash Bar development.
Which one?
Tash Bar was the original applicant on the site.
Whatever that's called now?
Yeah, I don't even know what they call it these days, but most of the houses are built and they got approvals on 12,000 square foot lots. Also had a condition where they had some open space in the back, so they didn't exceed the density, so they were at the planning board.
But for the record,
This is single family also.
These 12,000 square foot lots were approved in the heyday of Lakewood. Long time ago.
The Manic subdivision was probably
About
last
5 years
year.
ago, 6 years ago.
No, Manic I think was last year.
Okay.
And I'm hoping the heyday of Lakewood is yet to come.
Okay. Go ahead. Keep on going.
Okay. So the other thing to be pointed out here is that there's a stream corridor, and some of the big properties that you see are right in that stream corridor. So it's not like this area is going to be developed. There's going to be a lot of open space associated with that stream corridor. It's the 300-foot both sides of the top of bank that's going to remain open. So this applicant is looking at, by right, you go to the planning board with 3 15,000 square foot lots on septic. And you know, the initial reaction would be, well, go with 3 lots on septic. But then we have lots on septic near the Category 1 stream. We're talking about 4 lots, 12,000 square foot lots, almost 12,000 square foot lots that would be on public sewer and water. So the environmental impacts would be reduced. The master plan of 2007 indicates that providing public sewer and water is a benefit. And what we need to show you, we need to prove to the board, because this is a use variance, we need to show special reasons. We're here for a D variance, and it's a D5 variance. In particular cases, and for special reasons, grant a variance to allow departure from regulations pursuant to Article 8, and in our case, number 5, is an increase in the permitted density as defined, and we have to show the positive and negative criteria and the special reasons. So getting back to the master plan of 2007, on page 35 under housing, it indicates there's been a tremendous residential growth in Lakewood in recent years, and this trend shows no sign of abating. Many of the recent planning board applications in the township are townhouse developments of 6 to 8 units per acre. In addition, the UDO was revised to permit flag lots, which opened up oversized parcel to infill development. But it concludes, for all this growth, however, not all of Lakewood's housing needs are met. So this would provide 4 lots, which meets that objective. The same master plan on page 56 says encourage development and redevelopment based on smart growth planning principles. And it's my testimony that this is a redevelopment based on smart growth planning principles. It's the lot that fronts on County Line was John Stillwell's lot. The applicant purchased from John, and he's here with this application. And as indicated, it's 3 15,000 square foot lots on septic, or 4 lots on public sewer. Under the municipal land use law, NJAC 40:55D2, it says encourage municipal action to guide the appropriate use or development of all lands in the state in a manner which will promote public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. And it's my testimony that this promotes the public health and general welfare by putting lots on public sewer rather than septic, and especially in light of the close proximity to the Category 1 stream. E is promote the establishment of appropriate population densities and concentrations that will contribute to the well-being of persons, neighborhoods, communities, and regions, and the preservation of the environment. By having this on public sewer, it will serve the preservation of the environment. And with respect to the appropriate population densities, with the other lots in this area on 12,000 square foot lots, it's consistent, and the owners would be on lot sizes that are consistent with other lots in the area. The older lots are of larger size, but the new redeveloped lots, to the most part, are the lots on the other side of Brook Road, which are in an R12, were also 12,000 square foot lots, and then there was the whole Brook Hill subdivision, which was on 12,750 square foot lots. So the roughly 12,000 square foot lots that we're proposing are consistent with that. So then we need to show that the relief can be granted without substantial detriment to public good and will not substantially impair the intent and purpose of the zone plan and zoning orders. It's my testimony that due to the area, the large area in here that's not going to be developed, the one additional lot certainly will not impair the intent and purpose of the zone plan and zoning ordinance. And then we come to relief being granted without substantial detriment to the public good. You know, the public good in general, I think, is served by the public sewer. The other part of the public good is normally how it impacts the neighbors. And I happen to know on this particular application, because the Stillwells, Mike and Kathy, would live adjoining the property, and we did meet with them, and they feel that it is a detriment to their impact. The applicant would certainly provide substantial buffering and any other measures to limit the impact on them. But we feel that the 4 lots on sewer versus 3 lots on septic meet the criteria of being that the board can grant it without substantial detriment to the public good. And we would agree to amend the plan to add substantial buffering. The current plans don't show that substantial buffering. The applicant would certainly add the substantial buffering so that any of the aesthetic impacts to the adjoining neighbor could be addressed. Looking at Terry's report, he indicates in item 1 that the single family, and these are single family, not duplex, that they're the typical Lakewood single family that do have basements that are permitted to be rented, but that's the same as every single family in Lakewood. Item 2, he indicates the density that of 3.78, which is the reason we're here. A density of 3.78 where a maximum of 2.9 is permitted. The variances for lot area, 15,000 is required, and we have lot areas ranging from 11,060 to 11,514. We're also requesting variances for minimum lot width. We have lot widths of 70 to 75, where 100 feet is required. And if you look at A1, there's a lot of lots in the area with the 75-foot width. And that's the extent of the variances that we're requesting. The report has lots of questions on various items that I'd be happy to address. The architectural plans were not submitted. These are going to be custom homes if the board acts favorably. So we don't know at this point what the houses will look like. We could certainly provide architectural plans that would be the applicant's vision of what the units would be if the board didn't think a waiver for not having the architectural plans. Normally on a smaller lot, we would submit architectural plans so the board could see how it's going to fit on the lot. When you have 11,000 plus square foot lots, it's my opinion the board would not need that information to make a determination on the benefits outweighing the detriments. Certainly if the board felt differently, the applicant would provide architectural plans. Terry indicates we should provide testimony on the approvals, improvements, and obviously this applicant would improve Bogart Street. The plans don't show a turnaround at this point. Clearly, a turnaround needs to be provided, and we would work with the board's engineer on the appropriate turnaround if the board were to act favorably, or if the board feels that if insufficient information is there, we could add that to the plans and resubmit. And then most of the other comments deal with items that, signage, environment, technical items, and construction details that the applicant would address to the satisfaction of the board engineer.
Do you want to say something? Or do you want me to ask any questions? How do you want to go about it?
I have a complete statement. If you'd like me to give my statement, I'm happy to give it. Sure.
If I could just ask, if you could just tell me who you're representing?
Certainly.
Which lot that is?
Yes, my name is Ronald Ronco. I'm an attorney. I represent Ronald and Carmela Ronco, who are the owners of Block 197, Lot 1, which is right next to this proposed construction. All of the houses would face my client's residence. We oppose this application.
Excuse me, sir. Can you
Yes.
just spell your last name, please, for me?
WRONKO. We oppose this application for the following reasons. If the board approves this bulk variance, it would be arbitrary and capricious. First, the application would cause serious damage to the environment. There's a DEP protected waterway behind these two lots. The 300-foot DEP buffer runs right through Lot 3. It also runs through part of Bogart Street, the paper road this developer proposes to pave.
Hold on 1 second, please.
Sure.
You're saying that there is a waterway running right through the lots?
I'm not saying that the waterway runs through the lots. I'm saying that the 300-foot DEP buffer extends into Lot 3. And it's not noted on their plan paperwork, but the Manic Development actually noted that buffer on their plan paperwork, and it indicated that it would extend through Lot 3.
So I have to find Lot 3 first. Where is Lot
Certainly.
3?
Lot 3 is this one right here. You have 1.01, which is the one closest to county line, and then you have Lot 3, which is the one that is behind that lot.
Is that what is indicated on the map, which is the pool, where the pool is?
Where the pool is, correct.
And that is within the 300-foot waterway?
And that is within the 300-foot waterway.
And the 300-foot waterway is not depicted on this set of plans that I'm having here.
It is not depicted on the plans.
Perry, if that's the case, I don't think we should continue hearing this application until we verify this particular issue.
You can certainly ask the applicant professionals to give testimony as to their interpretation of the buffer.
And I would like to see it.
We were not sure that the buffer was on this property.
That's what we hear one. We have another one. I think that the plans should at least tell me and show you where that is.
It may or may not be on this property.
So-
I think it's a valid question of the board to ask for testimony.
And sir, Mr. Chairman, I'll note that I have a page from the Manic subdivision which very clearly depicts the waterway, and it goes right through Lot 3.
I understand what you're saying.
I mean, the
That you
buffer.
have that, but I need to see it on my map by a signed engineer. And if I don't see it on a map by a signed engineer agreeing with you or disagreeing with you, then I can't go forward. If my engineer or this engineer, Blue Lines, shows me the waterway and shows that this is not within the 300-foot, I stand correct, or else you stand correct. But right now, I don't see anything here, and therefore I need to have clarity on that.
Fair enough. Should I proceed on other points?
You can proceed on the next one.
Okay. The proposed residences on undersized lots would be significantly out of character with the surrounding homes and would create an impression of crowding. Unlike the development across from Calvary Academy and the Manic Gardens development, which incidentally was approved more than 1 year prior, this developer is not working with significant undeveloped acreage where the character and proximity of surrounding homes was not an issue. Here it is a central issue. County Line Alliance would crowd out the surrounding homes. Currently, this contractor's land already has a single-family residence that it is renting out. Block 197, Lot 1 is a single-family home on a 200-foot by 100-foot property. Block 197, Lot 2 is a single-family home on a 200-foot by 100-foot property. Block 207, Lot 12 is a single-family home owned by Michael and Kathy Stillwell on land that is 371 feet by 200 feet. Block 207, Lot 1 is 247 feet by 195 feet. These homes are bordered by County Line Road and an environmentally protected buffer zone. Putting 4 densely built houses in the middle of these blocks and lots would create the impression of crowding. The proposed homes, as I noted already, would all face my client's side property, creating a significant detriment to them.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Next, the plan includes a taking of a very small portion of my client's property that does not belong to County Line Alliance. The plans show a corner of Bogart Road cutting into my client's property. Next,
Hold on a minute. Can you point that
certainly.
out? I need you to point that out.
Certainly.
Okay.
If you look at how they're paving Bogart Road, if you look over at, you'll see the property line that's designated to, I suppose it's the south on this map. You'll see the corner, snipping the corner. See it snipping the corner of my client's property?
It's snipping a driveway of my client's property, I see.
Okay.
What that is? Can you come over here, sir? Can you show me?
Certainly.
Just for the record, the opposing attorney is here to point out this problem.
It's snipping my client's property.
Okay, and what's this? Is this into Bogart, this driveway?
No, Bogart is designated.
Okay, so this little piece right here? Is
Yes,
that property?
that's right.
And how big is that little piece?
I can't tell from the map.
Okay. Okay.
Next, the traffic study that has been prepared is grossly inadequate. These 4 houses will be placed across the street from a new massive commercial building. They will also be built down the road from 2 new subdivisions. They will also be built on top of an already very busy intersection of Brook and County Line. The traffic study makes a quick reference to the estimated number of trips from these 4 proposed homes, with no further analysis of the actual conditions on the ground. Additionally, the plans raise parking and safety concerns. With room to only park 1 car at each resident, cars will inevitably be parked on the street with no room for garbage or fire trucks to maneuver on this very small road. And once this board sees that the buffer zone actually intrudes on Bogart Road, there will be even less room for a turnaround. I noticed that they're indicating that they're going to somehow manufacture a turnaround. If the buffer zone, as I'm indicating, extends to where they're hoping to pave and hoping to build, then where is this turnaround going to be? There's simply no room for it unless there's going to be a significant detriment to the environment. Now, they reference that they're going to do sewers as somehow a benefit to the environment. What they're not mentioning is that every single one of these trees in this 300-foot buffer zone is going to be removed for purposes of constructing a building. So we look at what the burden is on this application. The developer must carry the burden of showing the public good from the zoning variance. What is the public good that comes from building 4 densely crowded houses in place of 1 residence there currently? 3 additional residences will not relieve housing pressures in this town. The real impact is all negative. It hurts DEP protected land, it crowds out original residents in the Stillwells and my clients with inconsistent development. It will ultimately be a tool for this contractor to drive out original residents and to reduce citizen diversity in this township. And I note, even though they may have spoken with the Stillwells about creating a buffer, all of these houses will be facing my client, and there's been no discussion about a buffer for them. So I would respectfully submit that, in addition, there's also safety risks because of the parking that's going to go on Bogart Road, no opportunity for garbage trucks or fire trucks to turn around. So I would respectfully submit that the application should be denied, and any approval would be arbitrary and capricious.
Thank you.
Mr. Waronko, I was just going to ask a question. Do you have any witnesses, Mr. Waronko?
Not tonight.
Do you have any questions of the applicant's witness, Mr. Flannery?
Not presently, no.
And if I can, Mr. Ronco has raised some questions which this applicant was unaware of with regard to one of the taking. I don't want to talk in hypotheticals about if it is or it isn't. I'd rather get the right answer and come back before the board. Additionally, the issue of the C1 buffer, I'd like to take a look exactly where that lies. Instead of asking the board to answer, like I said, a hypothetical question, I'd rather get the answer and come back at another time with all the proper answers.
That is a very smart move. I appreciate that because I wouldn't want to go further, especially when there's an accusation that you're building within a 300-foot buffer.
I understand that. I would like to get the information, we're going to come back to the board with the right answer. I'd like at this time request a table so we can get the
For
answers.
September 11th? Are you going to be ready by September 11th?
If we're not, I will send a letter prior to, and I'll ask Mr. Ronco for his contact information so I could let him know ahead of time. I'm asking for no further notice if necessary.
Here's what I'm going to do. I will grant you the table application to September 11th on one condition. I need new sets of plans showing me exactly where that water line is.
We seem to set a plan, just a,
A new set of engineering.
The applicant will measure it in the field and depict it on the plan so that
If
we
there
know
is
exactly
none,
where it
I
is.
need a certified letter that there is none.
But
Okay, whatever
well,
it is.
there clearly is a 300-foot riparian buffer, and it comes at some point. It's either on Lot 3 or it's not. The applicant will add the 300-foot riparian buffer to the plan so that everybody knows exactly where it is.
Great,
Chair,
thank you.
I would also like to see architecturals. It seems like, as far as I'm concerned, it's less than 12,000 square feet. If you're going to make custom homes of 50,000 plus.
The applicant will submit architectural plans of what he anticipates building if the board acts favorably. And if we have the contact information for both of the neighbors, we'll get that information to them as well.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask that the applicant get confirmation from the DEP of the line that gets designated?
we would object because we would provide a
I
certification.
need to speak in the mic.
We would provide, as in the past, a certification by the engineer, and again, if it's incorrect at a later date, we're still subject to outside agency approval, but at this point, we are going to do the field work, and there will be a certification, and it will be shown on the map.
At that time, when they have to get the final approval, they have to go to DEP regardless, or to the county.
Well, that's correct. They'll have to go through DEP, correct.
So I don't need them to bring it in at next time around. Because if it is incorrect, and DEP picks it up later on the final approvals, then it's going to be thrown out anyway.
Understood, but no, my objection. I would prefer to have the DEP involved at this stage.
I understand. Okay. Right, can I have a motion to table appeal number 4036 for September 11th without further notice, waiver of time? Motion from Mayor Gelli, second from Judah Ribbiat. Madam Secretary, roll call, please.
Mr. Kelly.
Yes.
Mr. Halverson. Mr. Montella.
Yes.
Mr. Ribbiat.
Yes.
Mr. Davis. Mr. Gonzalez.
Yes.
Mr. Halverson.
Yes.
Thank
Good
you.
night and good luck. Yes, resolutions, yes.
Lakewood is going to.
Yeah, just pass them down real fast and we'll take a quick look at them.
This may or may not be. They're going to establish where this line actually is. 40 from this line. This property
Don't throw them out?
could be off.
Oh, okay. Can I have a motion to approve the, all in favor of resolution 3940AA?
Yes.
Yes.
Extension.
With, what was that, with the 1 year extension?
Extension.
Yes. Everyone in favor? Yes. Yes, next.
3563, it's also a 1 year extension to Bob and that.
All in favor?
Yeah.
Okay, anything else?
Yes, 4027, Great Development. Resolution.
Great development, can I see that for a quick moment? I just need one.
Really want to see it?
Yes. Because I spelled my name, okay?
Mr. Chairman, I read it, and it's acceptable.
Okay, hold on a second. Chris, did you review this resolution? I want to make sure this resolution is...
Mr. Dowsey's office prepared it.
What?
My office prepared it, Mr. Chairman. My partner who was here at the hearing reviewed it. He prepared it because he was here for the application.
And I reviewed it on behalf of the applicant.
Construct a single-family home with a minimum size lot I want to make sure that it says over here that we're not tied down to lot size.
If you look on the, I believe it's the second to last
That's what I want to make
paragraph.
sure, and not the number of lots, not a size, not a number. What'd you say?
If you look on the last page, I'm sorry, second to last page.
Is there any more revision? Is this one right? One second, guys. While I look at that, are all in favor to pay bills? Okay.
Pay bills. Bills, okay.
If you look at page 3,
Page 3.
number 2, the approval is subject to the applicant applying for and receiving
Hold on,
site.
hold on. Page 2 there. The applicant.
Page 3, number 2.
Number 2, the approval subject to the applicant applying to receive site plan and or subdivision approval to construct no more than 29 single-family homes with a minimum size of 12,000 up to, no, it wasn't up to. It was not up to. It was whatever we decide, it was not up to.
18, we even said it, 15,000, 18,000.
So it should be revised how, sir?
Wow.
To take out the 15,188, so it should be a minimum lot size of 12,000 square feet and no up to,
No up to.
and a maximum density of 2.74 dwellings. So it's the leading up to, Chris, if you don't mind, I'll email your office tomorrow, red line version. But with that one change, I would just ask.
Mr. Chairman,
That's why I'm the chairman. Yeah?
I would just ask.
Mr. Chairman, you can make a motion to approve it with that change.
Correct.
We'll retroactively
Correct.
do it,
Correct.
so.
Okay.
All right, sir.
So, can I have a motion to approve the resolution of appeal number 4027 with the stipulation that we just discussed of there's no minimum of 12,000.
Deleting the words up to 15,188 square feet.
Motion.
Hold on one second before I close the motion. I want to show this to, that's the minimum, but we can decide to put an 18,000.
Right, a minimum lot size of 12,000 square feet.
Right, a maximum density, just the rest, right, 7.4.
Right.
Oh, that is a revised.
And then we can just decide then later to do whatever I have to do, right? You remember that discussion?
Yep, I'm not arguing.
Wow. Okay. Can I have
Kill
a
him with
motion?
smiles.
A motion for the resolution?
Yes.
Yes. All in favor, thank you.
September 11th.
September
Wait, the
11th.
other three?
What?
All right.
There's three more resolutions.
Wait, 3 more resolutions. Okay.
Send me the cliff
What was that?
KG was the one that was withdrawn.
Withdrawn, right.
Oh, there was no resolution, okay.
43rd Street, Zephyrin, that's on Sterling Avenue, to approve the construction of.
All in favor?
And Gerald Posen, 4031, that's the one on Sunset Road.
Well, that was, did we do that one right? The 10 and 10 on each side, 33 feet? Yes? Yes? 10 and 10. The applicant is from no wider than 33 feet on the property. Yes, okay, all in favor? Aye.
That's it.
Motion to close tonight's meeting? Motion? Aye. Good night, everyone. Aye. Aye.
All right, I'll send that revised one.